Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Serial Vasquez.
It's me.
Jeff Markiafava.
Hello.
And Kyle Hilliard.
Hi.
Fun fact, we actually just looped that. I copy and paste it from every previous episode of the podcast.
He had us come into the studio for one day with all of our clothes, and so we cycled through a number of outfits, and now we can only wear those outfits.
That's right. But welcome to the show. We got a lot of fun things to talk about today.
Good.
Do you guys remember, like, 2013?
Not well.
The sights and the sounds, the smells, the
What was
vibes.
Game of the Year that year? That's how I timestamp things.
Everybody knows that 2013 was Last of Us.
Okay. No, it was Dota 2.
Oh, that's right. Anyways, we're going to go back in time and talk about the PlayStation 4 launch, the build-up to the PlayStation 4 launch, and how that might be informing the PlayStation 5 launch, right? So there's a lot of stuff to unpack there because, last time, PlayStation and Sony, they had a February event where they revealed a lot of stuff about the PlayStation 4, and there's been rumblings and theories of like, oh, they're probably just going to do that again in February. So now that we're right on the brink of February, let's actually go back in time and take a look at this stuff. But then we also have games to talk about too. We're going to talk about Journey to the Savage Planet, a sci-fi comedy game Jeff and I have been playing. Kentucky Route Zero, which Cyril's been playing. I think Kyle and I have been dabbling with, which is the opposite of what you want to do with Kentucky Route Zero. And then we might touch on Disintegration, which is an upcoming shooter from one of the creators of Halo that had a tech beta going on. So we played a little bit of that as well. And then some wonderful, wonderful community questions that people submitted on Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns. Check it out there if you want to make the show better, please. Also, Chrono Trigger. We have the deepest dive rolling right now with Chrono Trigger, which is our community game club where we break that game down into chunks and go through it all in exhaustive detail. We just posted the second discussion, which covers the middle section of Chrono Trigger, and the final one is going to be airing on February 12th. So you have a little bit of time, is what I'm saying, if you want to still catch up to where we're at in Chrono Trigger. We're waiting for the grand finale where we cover everything in the game, the endings, everything like that. So if you've been hesitating or you say, like, oh, I can't catch up, they're moving too fast with the Chrono Trigger Game Club discussion, jump on in. The water is fine. Now's a great time to do it. Also turns out it's great to play that game.
Yeah, it turns out that it's one of the greatest RPGs ever made.
I think that's correct. So please join us. And also, you can unlock the audio version if you support us on Patreon at the $5 tier. But otherwise, that discussion's over on YouTube if you want to check that out for free. No harm done either way. Okay, the PlayStation 4. What do you guys remember from this era, building up to the PlayStation 4? What stood out to you in like that 2-year build-up of anticipation?
I mean, for me, it was the Microsoft versus Sony element of that E3. Like, that's the highlight.
Yes.
There's certainly more to it that I think we'll discuss. But, like, when I think back of the PS4 launch, it's that video of Adam Boyes handing a copy to, I don't remember, who do you
To Shu.
Shu, okay.
Yep.
Of, like, this is how you share games on PlayStation. Like, that was crazy.
And it's funny, too, that in retrospect, everybody remembers that being in the press conference at E3. It wasn't. That was just a bonus video that they shot super quick and then just uploaded on the YouTube channel. Because I was curious, because like that is like the defining moment in so many ways of this generation's console wars. I went back, looked at that video. It has 17 million views on PlayStation's YouTube channel.
Deserved, frankly.
That's like Vivo territory, man. Not many things get up there.
That's, movie clips territory. And I was just curious. It's the 4th highest YouTube video on PlayStation's YouTube channel.
What's the number one?
Number one is a video just called PlayStation 4. And then it's just like a montage, basically, of that February event.
Who's got better SEO on PlayStation than us?
It's
PlayStation
crazy.
4, baby.
And then the God of War reveal, and then the Spider-Man trailer. The used games sharing video has more views than the reveal trailer for the Final Fantasy VII remake.
Wow.
Just like, this is nuts. And then,
That
because
seems so niche, too.
I know.
Like, we love it, but, like, I'm surprised it bubbled up to beyond, like, the,
because it was just such a good
hyper
kickoff
fans.
to the console wars. Like, everybody would share it. It's funny. It's quick, right?
Yeah.
It's like surprisingly petty from like a corporation that I think would usually like stand to like not communicate that way. So
Yeah, and also just out of comparison, because I'm obsessed with YouTube, is I checked out the Xbox channel, the official YouTube channel. The highest viewed Xbox video is only 16 million. So it doesn't even hit that used games sharing video. And what do you guys think it is for the number one?
It was, how do we share used games on Xbox? Well, it's complicated.
And then the Kudos to Noda Wabam clip that I'm sure they singled out and uploaded to their channel.
They really should.
Yeah.
Just the cringe cut that's uploaded by the companies themselves.
man.
No, but the number one video
Is it Halo related? Throw in my real guess?
No, it is not.
Tomb
Raider?
No. It is
Limbo.
It's from 9 months ago. We all remember what came out 9 months ago and got 16 million views. Say it with me. The Minecraft Village and Pillage update.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
A Minecraft update.
Yep. Then the reveal for the
That's so funny.
for the Xbox One X. Oh, sorry. Then S. Then X. Then PUBG trailer. And then the 6th highest video
Series
views wise.
X?
Yes.
Okay.
No, not Series X. The One X.
Okay.
Then the 6th highest viewed video on Xbox's channel is the Halo Wars 2 reveal. Isn't that weird?
That's how desperate people are for Halo stuff.
Oh man.
I guess so.
I'll never
Like-
forget a real quick story. We were watching all the press conferences together, and the Halo Wars trailer came on. And I remember Cork joking like, "Don't cut to gameplay. Whatever you do, do not cut to gameplay. Do not show Halo fans how this game plays."
Yeah. I thought of Jeff Cork as well because during the February, no, it was the E3 for 2013 when PlayStation was showing the David Cage Dark Sorcerer tech demo. Because at the February reveal, they just showed like the old man's face and they showed like the whole tech demo. And it was like, oh, Boyle in trouble. Like this
It's
insane.
It was a joke, right? The whole thing was
But
like,
it was
goofy.
playing serious, and Jeff Cork just head in his hands is watching this and just goes, "What are you idiots doing?" Which is my favorite comment about Sony at the time. But it's so weird. Before the February event, I went back and looked at like news stories like, okay, around this era now, but going back to the PlayStation 4, what were people saying about the PS4? What were the big rumors, stuff like that? There were definitely rumors that it wouldn't play used games. That was for PS4 even. Yep, that was going back. And then, according to a Kotaku story from March 2012, there was the whole story about, it's going to be called the PlayStation Orbis. That's not actually a code name. That's going to be like a weird companion to the Vita, which is the other weird thing of this entire era is like how much Sony's pitching is like, the ultimate PS4 companion, the PlayStation Vita. We know how that turned out. But this was such a weird era because we were all at Game Informer, not Surreal, I guess.
No, I was
But-
in the ether.
That's right. We weren't born yet. But it was such a weird time, like going on the cover story trip for stuff like Thief and Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and stuff, where we travel and visit these studios. And it was always just like, hey, what's this game going to be released on? Like, high-end PCs and whatever else is available by the time it comes out. It's such weird,
such a bizarre thing to have a cover story that we're doing, and you have that like platform bullet, and it's like TBD.
But just read between the lines,
Yeah.
you idiots. Obviously, this is going to be next gen, but we just can't acknowledge it at this point and stuff like that. Going back to this era too, I love those things where it's like, man, I haven't thought about this in 7 years or more. Do you guys remember Epic's Samaritan demo?
It's like the demons and.
So yeah, it was like
wait, no, it's just. Sorry, you're going to explain it. Go ahead. Because there's the cyberpunk one, then there's like a demons one, right?
Yes, this is the more cyberpunk one where it looks
Okay.
like Blade Runner, where it's like the guy, and then he changes the texture of his face, and he's like punching the cops, and there's like robots and stuff. But it was them showing off back in 2011 how they imagined the next generation could look visually using Unreal Engine 3 at the time, which is strange. But that was such a big talker. It's like, oh, this Samaritan demo. But back looked at it, it's like, yeah, not too far off from the generation. Not an unreasonable vision of how graphics would look. So good on them for nailing
Being
it.
realistic.
Exactly. Yeah. Unrealistic, I would say.
Oh.
Jeff, and what else do you remember from this era before like the big February event of just like the rumblings, the discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the stuff that I remember was when we first started getting those details, and then it was when I was doing the research, I didn't realize how big a deal people made out of the PlayStation camera and like how that compares to the Kinect, because I guess the Kinect hadn't failed miserably at that point. So it was like, how is Sony going to counter? And they have this camera and it has 2 lenses in it.
For sure. But even before they reveal that, I mean, there were a lot of rumors swirling that like, oh, Sony's patenting some camera-like technology. It's going to be bundled with it. They're going to have a Kinect-based UI for the PlayStation 4, everything like that.
Yeah. I remember some of the Kinect rumors we heard at the time were like tracking eyeballs and like your heart rate.
Well, it wasn't the rumors. Like, that is what they announced with the next generation on Xbox's side. It's like, oh, yeah, I can read your heart rate all right, which is absurd. But, yeah, it was such a weird era because everyone was so petrified about just mobile gaming and how much that was going to eat into the consoles, and whether this would be the final console generation, whether these consoles would get out of the gate. And now we see that they've just been selling like gangbusters. PS4 is one of the most successful consoles of all time, so it's just wild. But I was confused too, looking back on the stats even, because I always loved the PlayStation 3, but at least in the Game Informer office, I felt like I was in the minority for being a PlayStation 3 first person. And so it was always like, oh, well, Sony, PlayStation 3 was a big misstep. And yes, there were definitely some faults along the way, but do you know that the PlayStation 3 eventually outsold the 360?
Yeah, it got there.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, but in everybody's mind, it's like, 360 was just the champion, the generation by a mile. But it's like, total sales. Yeah, even though
it caught up and passed it.
Yeah, I think 360 probably a better console overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was around like the Slim that I think that narrative started to shift from like, oh, Sony totally bundled their launch kind of presentation and, the PS3 being as expensive as it was. And then I think around the Slim, everyone was like, like this Slim thing, they changed the font. It's not the Spider-Man font anymore. Infamous is out. Like we can start kind of reversing that narrative.
And I mean, it ties into that international like sales where the Xbox has always struggled so much that, it took like the entire generation, but the PS3 was selling everywhere. Yeah. And so
I mean, Europe has always leaned PlayStation generally, right?
Yeah. And so it ended up surpassing it, but we still think of the 360 as, like the console of that generation.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we're self-centered.
That's exactly it.
Selfish, yeah.
Then there's a big reveal, the February 20th event, 2013. Very exciting, palpable energy in the air, right? Everybody waiting to see what was going on. Andrew House came out, said, it's a best place to play, the PlayStation 4. That's going to be a slogan that you'll never forget.
There's a couple of quotes here that I pulled from that.
Please.
So here's Andrew House saying, the PlayStation 4 represents a significant shift from thinking of PlayStation as merely a box or a console to thinking of PlayStation as a leading authority on play. Which
Okay.
Did they deliver on that promise? I don't know.
When I think playing,
I did play it a lot.
Yeah.
That's true. They are the authority on play, whatever that means. And then the other quote was from Marc Cerny, who comes on later in that same presentation, which is like this weird quote to hear now. But he said, our long-term vision is to reduce download times of digital titles to 0. If we know enough about you to predict the next game you'll purchase, then that game can be loaded and ready to go before you even click the buy button.
100%. It is so weird. And even at that event too, yes, them trying to say their shop was going to be so great that they'll have it downloaded. But then it's bizarre too because they have Dave Perry from Gaikai, who they had purchased not too many years before, come out on stage and what eventually became PlayStation Now. You can debate the success of PlayStation Now, but he came on stage to be like, oh no, with the streaming technology, you can go right in the store and you don't have to download a demo or anything. You can just hit play and try it out right there. Like there's so many little examples of, well, I guess technically in a way for some of these, for so many things that they were promising at the start of the last generation.
I had quotes from that too, because that's what stuck out to me that I hadn't remembered that was part of the first pitch. And it was because they had bought Gaikai. And so David Perry was coming out to kind of like bolster what Gaikai was doing. And his quote was, "You simply press the X button to hop in and start playing the game directly from the store. With Gaikai, you'll be able to instantly experience anything you want." Definitely not overselling.
They spent so much time with Perry. Like, he took up a lot of stage time, to talk about that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, and they were emphasizing so much too, like, sharing is huge. And I remember there were those early rumors. I remember listening to the 8-4 Play podcast back in that era, and they were so excited about the potential of a share button. And I was like, that would be so weird. Like, that is a bigger leap, I think, than we realized looking back on it. Like, that was a crazy thing to include that share button.
Having a hard drive that records your gameplay constantly, if you go back and play a 360 game, I miss it. I actually do use it a lot. So yeah.
What do you use it for?
Just to save clips. I have the timer to share down to 2 minutes, so it's just little things, or if I want to tweet about something, it just bugs me when people just take pictures of their TV. I'm like, it's all integrated. You can get those screenshots, man.
We have to share it to Facebook and make it private. I don't really know how that works, to be honest with you.
It could be simpler for sure.
Yeah. So along with that press conference, I have a quiz for you guys.
Ooh, yes.
They had apparently mentioned the 5 tentpole things that the PlayStation 4 was going to be all about.
And these are their
the special
hot
words.
buzzwords.
Yep. Do you remember what they were?
Social. right?
Social is one of them.
Okay.
Hard drive.
I literally watched this last night, and they were also such corporate BS. It's
Is
like
Play one?
No.
integration.
Oh.
Yep.
Simple.
Yeah.
Simple. I
So they
remember,
were simple, immediate, social, integrated, personalized.
Personalized.
Which really, and I guess that is the takeaway that we should have had, I guess. Like the main vision that they had and the selling point, which seemed so integrated into their Gaikai purchase, was that, yeah, if there's a game, man, like you can go to that store, you can play it instantly, and part of that pitch was you were playing the actual game, not just a demo. Like you were supposed to be able to instantly jump into any game and play it for a little while to figure out if you wanted to buy it or not. Which there was another, I didn't write down what article it was from, which I think it was on Polygon, but they kind of went back and talked to David Perry about all that time, and he was pretty critical about how Sony just didn't like. They made all of these big claims, but they didn't follow through on it as much as he was hoping. And but he also was talking about how like the reaction that they got from publishers, and he had one quote from a publisher that was basically like they flat out told him like, David, we don't want them to play. We don't want potential consumers to play the game. Like we can show them a trailer and it will do a better. And like the direct quote was like, the game's actually not that good, but like we can show them in a trailer a better version than actually jumping into a game. And so
don't let them get frustrated.
Yeah. And so I think there were a whole lot of problems with that vision beyond just like the streaming technology.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird to think about Dave Perry and just think about like the personnel at Sony back during this reveal and how completely different it's going to be with the PlayStation 5. Like Shu will still get out there, I'm sure, which is great. And then Marc Cerny, he's been doing the Wired interviews. I hope that he's going to be front and center for the PlayStation 5 reveal. But that was like such a big surprise because I remember in 2013, I think it was, maybe 2012, when I went on the cover story for Fuse and visited Insomniac. I remember I was talking to Ted Price, and he was talking about what a genius Marc Cerny was and all this stuff. And I remember asking him, I said, well, what is Marc Cerny doing now anyway? And Ted Price is like, you'll have to ask him that one. And it was one of those like, what kind of top secret project is Marc Cerny doing? And then like with this February event and Marc Cerny comes on stage like, I am the lead system architect for the PlayStation 4. It's like, oh my God, I'm so glad I asked that question.
Yeah. It's also weird because this, like as mostly a consumer at this point, like it felt like the first time that the conference wasn't entirely centered around horsepower. Because they did have tech demos. Obviously, like Mac was like hey, look at all the particles.
Was uttered.
Yeah. But and they did talk about like here's all the hardware or whatever. But now like the ease of access thing, the streaming thing, it was definitely like they shift away from horsepower to convenience. Yeah. And like I remember one of Cerny's talking points was like, hey, we're switching back from the cell architecture, which I guess had been a pain in the ass for a lot of developers, and like kind of made like building ports and stuff difficult. To hey, we're on x86, the one that everyone else uses, and now like ports will be easier, and programming will be a lot easier. And as like it was weird for me to get excited, but like hey, like that was like the first acknowledgement of like the console is not just a consumer facing thing, like it can help developers, and the way developers benefit also benefits you in a lot of ways. And that was like the shift of like, okay, well these consoles are in a lot of ways going to present you the same games but through different ecosystems. And that was like the time when like how you experience games is as important as like how the games look.
Yeah, for sure. That's a wild thing too, is just like the opening of that February event was Marc Cerny just courting devs and just saying like, hey, basically we're just building a PC here. This is going to be pretty easy, but like we've consulted devs. Of course they have their splashy video of
we put them all in a white room and talk to them
and talk about the power of creativity and stuff. And like it's funny to look at that now because like two of the leading voices they have, and that's like, well, Tim Schafer and Tamim from Ninja Theory. And it's like, well, they're both Microsoft employees now, so that's a little bit tricky. But I thought that was a really interesting maneuver, and I think it was also maybe just dev relations wise, they had some struggles in the PlayStation 3 generation, tech and otherwise, right? So to get out on such a good footing with that, and then at E3 eventually segueing into like courting indie devs, I just feel like on a dev relations aspect, Sony was just on top of it at the launch of the PS4, and it's those little things that I think really made a huge difference. I think Adam Boyes as an early spokesperson is just like, oh, I get games, I play Destiny all the time. Like, it just felt like they did such a masterful job of communicating and connecting to the average gamer. And then also they have this huge groundswell of internet hate towards the Xbox One to like rocket launch them into this atmosphere.
And it's hard to tell, like the chicken and egg scenario of like
Right.
when that came, because yes, Atom Boys was like the perfect, you couldn't ask for a better lead into that. So I don't know if they realized that and then Atom Boys became a much larger figure, afterwards. But yeah, you couldn't, like, it doesn't get better than your major competitor stumbling and making these seemingly anti-consumer decisions and getting so much flack for that just absolutely opened the door for them to come out and be like, hey, consumers love us, devs love us, we're going to do what's best for everyone. And
Right.
that's such an easy sell. And that like won the generation before the generation was even out at that point.
It's true. It's wild. As for games shown at that February event, just to try and get some framework for how many games they showed so we can maybe predict something with the PlayStation 5, Knack was the first game they showed.
Now, was that the first time we saw PS4 like gameplay or like
Wasn't
footage?
Watch Dogs like the first next game?
But that was-
it wasn't announced.
It
That was
wasn't
E3 2012 where they
high-end
showed Watch
PCs,
Dogs, and it was
right?
kind of that confusing thing. Or even like, Star Wars 1313. There was just a lot of things that were like wink, wink, probably
Yeah.
next to Ignis Philosophy, the Final Fantasy tech
Yeah.
demo thing. So there's a lot of wink, wink stuff probably next gen. But I guess the first PlayStation 4 gameplay
that was officially PlayStation 4
was Knack.
was that weird lore-heavy trailer about
Starting with Jennifer Hale. Yeah.
It's in retro. I mean, even at the time, I think we were kind of like raising an eyebrow, like, all right, this is our first PS4 thing. Okay, weird.
Why do you think Knack is so funny? Why do you think people
He's a
like
cute
joking
little
about
black guy.
Knack?
Because I think it was it overpromised a lot of things. Not necessarily from like, oh, it's going to be really ambitious, but that was pitched as like in the same way that I think launch titles were pitched at the time of like, hey, look at this tech.
Yeah.
This is like ostensibly going to make the game better. And like it was like it was a mediocrely designed game overall, but it was like the game that everyone kind of latches onto, where it's like, yeah, the number of particles you have in the model doesn't matter. Like that ended up being like the least interesting part of that game.
And also, have you seen the character Knack?
I was gonna say, I think
know what?
Knack
That's a good
is
point.
funny looking. But it's like even like with the Gaikai stuff, they're like, we're gonna be able to stream to Vita, and we brought a surprise from Marc Cerny, like to show off this tech. It was like Marc Cerny's kind of like ultimately sort of limited kind of platformer. It wasn't like this crazy tech showcase. or
Right,
anything,
right. Yeah, it's very confusing.
I also have a quote on that Shuhei did with Eurogamer when he was. It was after that event. I think Eurogamer got a chance to talk to them, but it was before they had shown actual hardware at that point and stuff. But he was kind of talking about the visions, and so he again said they were saying that the system would basically have no firmware updates, or that they would just all go seamlessly in the background. And his quote was, "If you have 1 hour of your time, you want to spend 1 hour playing games," which I feel like that's another issue where it's like, some of that is on publishers, because there are just so many games that require updates now at this point that I've had plenty of times where it's like, well, I have 1 hour and I haven't played at all because it needed this update. And I think PlayStation still kicks you some system updates like that too, depending on how often you have it on standby mode and stuff like that. But he also said you don't have to. And he was talking about this as like a forward-thinking thing. So these aren't promises that he made.
Yeah.
But he said, you don't have to wait for anything to play, and you can use many different devices to play and communicate with other players. And you can instantly try many of the games on the store. So that was,
They were pushing towards like mobile and stuff, please interact there.
I had forgotten that messaging too of like, well, not only is everything instant, but you can play it anywhere. And that too was the Gaikai vision that Gaikai had been kind of pitching people on this cloud gaming and game streaming before, Sony had bought them. But then it just kind of, once they got it in-house, they didn't push it as far as...
Right. And it's weird now, there's rumors that, PlayStation 5 will also have some streaming components similar to xCloud and Microsoft. It's just weird how it seems like the reveal of this generation is basically, let's just message those things from last generation again, but kind of mean it more.
Yeah. And now that Google Stadia is doing it and that Xbox, Microsoft is taking it more seriously, it's like Sony's playing catch up when they were the ones that, had this original vision, but they just didn't follow through.
I think knowing now the narrative was always like, hey, Microsoft was trying to pitch this like kind of ambitious but also anti-consumer vision.
Yeah.
And Sony, meanwhile, like it feels like in hindsight they were always pitching. They like, no, we just want to make games the way you always remembered them, right?
Yeah.
But they totally had this like forward like looking vision of like, oh yeah, like PlayStation is an ecosystem more than it is a console, which is sort of what Microsoft is pitching now. But they just kind of like scuttled all of that in the wake of Microsoft's failure. So like, or like, you know, that whole kerfuffle about always online stuff.
Yeah.
And so like they just kind of very quickly pivoted to that approach. But everyone remembers it like, no, that was what Sony was always planning all along, is to just give you the games you want, right? So it's like Microsoft's like screw up kind of told them what the consumers wanted, and they just kind of very quickly forgot about all of their forward thinking stuff.
Right. Speaking of the past repeating, wouldn't it be kind of fun if they did a big February reveal for the PlayStation 5, and then they just got Media Molecule to go out there again and just do the exact same Dreams demo, because technically the game is not out.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's so weird watching that Media Molecule demo, where they're just like banging on the instruments, all that stuff, and they're all about sculpting and, quote, recording your dreams, because the game or the project didn't have a name or anything, but they said that the goal was to let you record your dreams, and they used that a couple times. It is wild that it's been an entire generation. I know they released Tearaway on PS4, yada yada yada, but still, like, that's crazy that they could almost do that again for now the next generation. Yeah, and I hope they do. I hope there's a good ready to go PlayStation 5 version, but obviously PS5 is backwards compatible, so it wouldn't need to be, even if they don't get it out in time. The other weird thing from that reveal is they brought Ono from Capcom up on stage to talk tech, and he talked about Capcom building out the Panta Ray engine, which eventually died on the vine. It's confusing because everybody's fallen in love with the RE engine, but this seems like it was a separate engine they were building internally, and the big tech demo that they're showing with it was Deep Down.
Yeah, remember when Deep Down came out and everyone enjoyed it, and it was a real game that came out?
Yes, we all clearly remember that, Zero.
It is weird looking at that trailer again. It's like, it looks awesome. They eventually revealed it was going to be free to play, so it's kind of like a weird free to play,
and like
Dark Souls
procedurally
clone.
generated dungeon stuff.
It
going on
seemed
there?
very confusing, and there's text on the screen for the reveal of Deep Down. It says, "Conquer your fear or die a coward."
Or just never pursue it.
I guess they game died a coward, yeah. And they just said, screw it, we'll just make Monster Hunter instead.
Which honestly, good call.
Good move. People still want Deep Down. Maybe it could come back for the PS5. But then remember that weird teaser at the end of that first trailer where it was like a message from Blanca being like, "Help me, Ono, come in my game and help me." And it was like so there were like hints that people were thinking that maybe there was like a sci-fi element, like an Assassin's Creed style thing, and there was kind of like a sci-fi layer
Deep Down.
Deep Down. Yeah, and there was going to be some weird messaging thing, but maybe that was just them trying to harness what Sony was going for at the time, of being more social, like, take the controller from somebody else and play their game for them while they stream on Ustream and all that stuff.
It was Blanca, you said?
Yeah, Blanca
he has
sent
that
this
little
message.
toy that he always brings with him.
Oh,
so
okay. I was going to
Yes.
say, were they trying to establish fiction for why he didn't appear at the launch of Street Fighter V? Like he was off trapped
off playing
somewhere.
Deep Down.
He's still stuck in Deep Down.
I mean, the other thing that Cerny sort of hammered on was like what you mentioned, like the screen sharing. You know, like being able to like dive into someone else's game and play. Like that is a feature that I assumed was coming after launch and just like never surfaced, but I guess it's been there like all along. And like I think the first time I heard about it, like being used practically was like co-oping Lego games, right? Is like that's how people would co-op Lego games.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I was like, and that's like the only thing that I've ever heard anyone take advantage of it or use it. Like, I don't know if there was a lesson there of like people don't want to do that, or they just didn't surface it enough or make it like an enticing feature. I mean,
don't think people want to do that.
I just don't. I wouldn't want to invite somebody to take over my game. I don't want to take over someone else's game either.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't know. It's a weird feature that was like in the highlight reel that like just never happened. I mean, maybe it did, but no one cared.
Well,
you know?
we
think
forgot
that's
to tell
exactly
you about the special 24-hour streams where we are going to have you taking over someone else's game for 24 hours in a row.
Here's another phrase that I haven't thought about for 7 years. Drive Club PS Plus edition. Remember that whole thing? Like they revealed Drive Club at the February event, and then at E3 they revealed they would have the PlayStation Plus edition, which was a stripped down edition. Eventually did come out and was such a weird deal. But then also I forgot that they revealed Infamous Second Son at the February event. Remember they had Nate Fox come out and everyone made fun of him because he's a super funny guy, like one of the funniest developers I've ever met. But then at the event, he came out and he was so serious, and he came out and he's like, several years ago, I was tear gassed by the police for my beliefs. You know, and everyone just railed against him for being such a douchebag, talking about how he was tear gassed.
I don't remember that. The only thing I remember is like the scene of the protagonist from Infinite, like doing that, like the camera, like jumping up into the air and like the camera being overhead. I was just like, whoa. And like that felt next gen to me at the time, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Do you remember the protagonist's name?
I don't, which is embarrassing because I really love that game.
Delson Rowe. I only know that because they went on the cover story trip and spent a lot of time thinking about Sucker Punch.
I remember Cole McGrath. Is that
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, there we go. See, I love
Off-road racer Cole McGrath.
Infamous, #1 fan.
And that was a very weird cover story trip too, because the way it was pitched, this is coming from PR, so you never know. But it was such a huge deal because one of the cover story trip before the PS4 came out, obviously, and it was like, okay, you get to play Infamous Second Son on a PlayStation 4, and then there were like Sony people there that were only there because of the hardware, and they actually handed me like a prototype PS4 controller, and they said, you were the first member of the press to play with a PS4 controller.
That's cool.
I'm sure they told a lot
And
of
you
people
cried
that.
the entire time.
Yeah, I was
right?
like, okay, cool. And just like the D-pad was like a little bit different. It was like a little bit chunkier. I think photos eventually came online where they showed like some of those early prototype PS4 controllers, but that was important to me. Because I think it was
proud
my
of you.
birthday, and so that's why they gave it to me over the people who were actually writing the story, which is
Would
very
you say that
sweet.
back then you were a prototype?
I think that's right, man. I haven't reached my final form
You're
yet.
thinking of the game that competed with Infamous.
Yeah.
No,
much
I never
worse.
thought about that game.
I never thought about that game.
And then the weird thing at that February reveal is Blizzard came out too, like Chris Metzen, and they revealed that Diablo 3 is going to be coming to PS3 and PS4, which is the weird deal. And then like more teases of Destiny and all that fun stuff. And then E3, that was the juggernaut head-to-head. PlayStation's press conference happening later after Microsoft, and then they reveal that, you can play used games, you don't have to be always online, and it's going to be $100 cheaper. It's going to launch at $400. And I went back and watched that press conference again, and like that crowd, I mean, that has to be the highlight of Jack Tretton's life. Just being able to sit back and be like, all right, everyone will just cheer for a minute straight.
Yeah, because there was also a bunch of like games. Like I remember, wasn't Kingdom Hearts 3 there? So it was like this weird compounding energy of like, here's all this other exciting things on top of the screw you to Microsoft basically. Like I remember that was like a thing where people came out of that going like people lost their minds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they revealed like the Order 1886 at E3 2013, Transistor, Outlast, which is weird. Final Fantasy Versus 13 became 15.
There was
and like the big demo for Destiny in there too.
There was a Resetera thread, by the way, the other day that just said, so is Versus 13 coming out or not?
Just a little bit.
What if they just now for PlayStation 5 announced the return of Final Fantasy Versus 13?
That'd be stunning. That'd be amazing.
You guys want to do a little trivia?
Yeah.
At the launch of the
no, I'm
PlayStation
busy.
4, there were 23 games.
Oh, I have this list as well.
Okay, well then you're out of it. Just these
Okay.
two. Just
Okay.
these two. See how many you can guess of the 23. The launch PS4 games.
Killzone?
Killzone Shadowfall. Correct.
Wait, so they have to guess all of them?
Yes.
Knack.
Oh,
Knack.
good one,
Well
good
done.
one.
That's it.
The arcadey game. Crap. Can you help me?
Watch Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Watch Dogs was
it?
not at launch.
Dang it.
Um,
The arcadey game?
Kyle's right.
yeah.
The
Resogun.
Yes,
Resogun.
Resogun. Way to go.
Right,
Correct.
There's a Mousecraft? Mice? No?
No. You're just making up names of games.
I'm thinking of
This
games
one.
I
Hanson,
reviewed.
I can tell why you do all these trivia stuff. It's really fun to have all the knowledge that other people are trying to guess.
Oh yeah, it's a weird.
So Second Son.
that was going to be launched. It eventually got delayed. Yep.
Deep Down, of course.
What about indie stuff?
Yeah, that's what I was getting
There's
at.
a
Resogun.
game from a studio that was later purchased by Microsoft. Compulsion Games. Remember Contrast?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think that was the earliest indication of like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't buy this game because now it's on PlayStation Plus.
It was on there so fast. Yeah.
Okay, so how
Think
many
about
do we have to
third
go?
party. Think about third party standard 2013 games.
Call of Duty.
Which one?
You gotta say which one though.
Black Ops.
No. No.
None of those.
Advanced
Ghost.
Warfare?
Ghosts.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Correct.
Played that sucker.
Jeff,
That was it. Is that your review?
I played it.
Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
there we go.
Yeah, nice.
And that was the weird thing where if you had the PS3 version, you could put it in the PS4 and then upgrade it for an extra $10. It was so insane. You put a PS3 disc in the PS4.
They're not going to do that this time, right? It's just going to be
can't
backwards
be, no.
compatible. Like I have to
but
imagine.
then there might be like, do you want to unlock the 4K
You
version?
download
this hair to look
the
better?
8K texture pack
and they charge you for it? I could see that.
I mean, it's just gonna be. They're just gonna be like, hey, just buy it digitally, right?
Could be.
And then you get whatever
Yeah.
whatever version.
Tomb Raider.
No, there was a
that was
port.
later.
There was a port of a early PS3 game, early to mid PS3 game, Beloved.
I would say
I forget the name of the studio. It's that one that game
God of War.
that game company.
Oh, Journey.
No, Flower.
Oh, Flower.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm tapped, I think.
Okay, think about more standard. What are the standard releases every year?
So was Drive Club there? There's racing, right?
Nope.
There's always got to be racing.
There's
Madden,
racing.
FIFA.
Madden.
Okay,
There
no
is
FIFA,
FIFA.
NBA.
Yes, you got
Okay.
it. You got it. Okay. What about? There is racing, as Serial mentioned.
racing.
Remember what racing game was there? at the
racing game
launch?
from 2013 series that had a lot of releases around that time, and doesn't have as many anymore.
I mean, there wasn't
Need
a Gran
for
Turismo.
Speed.
Yes.
Need for Speed.
Most Wanted.
Nope.
Unwanted.
Rivals, everybody. Rivals.
Everyone's favorite.
Okay, let's see. We can get all these. What about
I don't think we can get all of
There are
them.
two.
There's
DC
no way they
ga-
guessed
There
one
are
of these.
two DC games.
Oh, DC Universe Online?
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
2 DC games?
Yep.
Was there an Arkham
No.
City port? No? Okay, I don't think so.
Serial's a fan.
Dota.
DC Dota, that's right. Although there was literally
was.
a DC MOBA called
Injustice?
Infinite Crisis. or
Injustice, Gods
Injustice,
Among Us.
nice.
Way to go.
Ultimate Edition.
Correct. Let's see. There is a standard from Ubisoft releases every year. Usually,
Just Dance.
Yes, Just Dance 2014.
Sure.
One of the first
Oh my God.
Switch games announced, right?
These are getting hard. There's a PS3 game that's indie. The level with Beck made me cry.
Oh, Sound Shapes.
Sound Shapes port was there at launch, correct? There's an EA game. EA Shooter was there at launch.
Battlefield. Battlefield. Let's see.
4.
Yes, there we go.
Good job.
Kyle, there is a game that you should know
Okay.
was here at launch. I believe your wife is in the credits of this game.
Oh, well, Angry Birds Star Wars.
There it is. Angry Birds Star
Her
Wars.
credit is she did some testing on the Vita version.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so I don't think she's in the
still.
But yeah, no, that's a good clue. Good clue.
Okay, great. As everybody knows, there
Angry
was
Birds Star Wars launch time over.
there was Skylanders Swap Force.
Wait, yeah, that was my next guess.
Okay, there is. These are impossible. Blacklight Retribution. Trine 2 Complete Story.
Which is funny because they call it Complete Story, but then 2 more Trine games came out after that.
I always thought it was Trine. It's Trine, huh?
then
it's Trine.
Super Motherload, and the last game that was there at launch, one of the biggest games in the world now, and we all said, yeah, well, we might try it. It's a free-to-play game at the launch of the PS4.
Free to play. Warframe.
There it is. Way to go.
There was, man, I reviewed a launch game that was like a puzzle game where you played as mice. And unless
Is it? That must be Super Motherload.
Man, I don't think so.
So one thing you guys kept mentioning, like games that ended up getting delayed, and I watched the launch trailer for the PS4, and I'm looking for the list here. But they had a bunch of games that ended up not coming out until way later. Like they had Metal Gear Solid 5, they had The Witcher 3, Deep Down, they had Watch Dogs, Infamous, and Destiny, all of which did not come out until the following year.
Right.
So, and that makes me think about like, what is the PS5 launch trailer going to look like? Because either a bunch of stuff is going to have to get delayed, or there are going to be a ton of announcements that aren't going to come until like way off in the future, like this year, which is going to be interesting to see. Because otherwise, like, I can't imagine that the PS5 launch, like, there's not a whole lot there right now that we know for sure.
Do you think it's going to be a lot of cross-gen stuff?
I would imagine, like, I don't think there's, I think to speak to that, I think that there's going to be a lot of games that they're just going to say, like, hey, the game that you already want, like Cyberpunk, you can play it on PS5, your PS4 copy on PS5, and it'll run better. It'll be something that, where they'll say, like, hey, you'll already have access to all of these amazing games, including, you know, Cyberpunk, Avengers.
Doom Eternal.
I think they'll lean into that a lot more than, like, here's a next gen version of this game. I don't think there are going to be as many like PS5 ports as there were for last gen. I think the sell will be all your old games will just come in, especially with like the number of live service games like Fortnite. You're not going to have to start over on Fortnite. Like they'll just it'll just work, right?
Yeah. An interview here with Business Insider in Japan, Sony's president, Jim Ryan, said that the biggest and, quote, more unique features of the upcoming PlayStation 5 console have yet to be revealed. What's your best guess? I mean, there are rumors that it's going to be fully backwards compatible. Because there was a patent. I think there was a patent a while ago.
I thought that was in the Wired article.
No.
Okay.
No,
Right.
in the Wired article it says it's backwards compatible to PS4. But the idea of it running PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think that's probably in there, right?
Yeah.
that would be such another
amazing.
just
Memory
like,
card slot.
oh my God. Just
to
like
break out. I have for my PS3. There's a USB to memory card.
Yeah.
Part, so I got to break that thing out. See if I still have
There's
that.
no doubt about it. Do you think that could be referring to something else besides that in terms of like the bigger, more unique features?
You'll finally be able to turn off that light bar.
I mean, I don't even think the controller will have a light bar.
Because in the Wired article, like they were handed a controller, the prototype controller, and they said it looks identical. Well,
The
pretty
D-pad
close.
was a little chunky, and the author noted that it was his birthday.
That's right, yeah. But that it was
Cried,
pretty
well
much just a PlayStation 4 controller, except they said there was like something that looked like a mic.
Okay.
But this was like a prototype PlayStation 5.
Yeah, because I mean,
but-
if they want it to be backwards compatible, like they want to maintain the touchpad and stuff, so
But that's the
that
frustrating
everyone
thing.
can play Days Gone as it was intended.
But then I would love for them to shake it up and then
Yeah,
just
me too.
have it be a thing where it's like you can still use the DualShock 4 for the backwards compatible
Yeah,
games. You
that'd be
know?
nice.
Yeah,
if you
because I
want to
think
go back to
like
that.
the reason that light bar was even there was because I think they had bigger plans for camera, like PS camera integration, and the idea was that
It helped,
It could
yeah.
it could follow the controller.
Yeah,
around
I mean,
better.
they said in the reveal in February, like, oh, the controller and the light bar is designed in tandem with the PlayStation Eye. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And they
if
also
they don't
said it
have
would-
that functionality, then why would they have a light bar
Yeah,
on that thing again?
They also,
Because they're going to have VR again, most likely, for the PlayStation 5. So maybe they want to connect it to that in some way.
so but unique features, realistic ones,
There's going to be an algorithm that will download the games before you buy them.
and charge you for them.
that was such a preposterous idea of
Right.
like, I'm just going to be my console's just going to download a 100 gigabyte game for me because it thinks I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
I played one Call of Duty and now every November my
You
internet
wanted
bill
this,
is
right?
tanked. Yeah.
One of the big failures of this generation, not Sony, is that idea of starting to be able to play a game before you finish downloading it. Like, I like that conceptually. Like, let me play the first hour of the game while it finishes downloading. But like that sort of amount of gameplay you get before it finishes downloading has just been consistently awful and just like useless and pointless. And in many cases, like if you don't let Call of Duty finish downloading all the way, like the textures are not fully downloaded and it looks like crap. Like there's just no one was excited to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Like it just there was ideally I like it. Like let me play the first level while I'm waiting for it to download, but no one uses it that way. It's ridiculous.
I imagine they could do something similar where you just stream the game while it's waiting to download, but I don't think
that'd be kinda interesting.
I don't
Yeah.
think that'll end
Yeah,
up
I do.
happening.
It just does come in handy. It was like, okay, I just want to download the multiplayer version or the multiplayer portion of Call of Duty and stuff. Like that's where it does come in handy.
Yeah, choosing. I mean, but that's like the only example I can think of with Call of Duty is
Right.
like where it was like smart and well, and because like the worst for me was like GTA. Like 5, it was like I was like, oh, maybe I can play the prologue. That would be cool. But all it does is when it finishes download, you can start playing. Is it kicks you to the system's like internal like installation. Like so, you get to go from one status bar to a second status bar. It's just like so stupid.
Yeah, very bizarre. Let's see other things. Marc Cerny's fallen back into his old role here, promising a lot. So in the Wired article, he said, even though it'll be fairly fast to boot games on the PlayStation 5, we don't want the players to have to boot the game, see what's up, boot the game. Oh, multiplayer game servers will provide the console with a set of joinable activities in real time. Single-player games will provide information like what missions you could do and what rewards you might receive for completing them. Then all of your choices will be visible in the UI. As a player, you just jump into whatever you like. It's just the idea of like in the PlayStation 5 UI, you'll be able to see where other people are at better, and instead of going to the game, going to multiplayer, then to join, just to be able to join right from the main menu. Which, sure, that seems cool. Like I remember, I think Gamescom 2013 is where they first revealed the UI for the PlayStation 4. It was like Shu on stage just going through it, and it looks so snappy and so great. And I think this is also across both consoles, but they've just chugged more and more. And now it's like, I still have the launch PS4, and that thing takes a while just to do basic things around the UI. It's such a bummer to see. Like, I guess the lesson here is take everything with a grain of salt. Everything you see about the PlayStation 5,
Oh, yeah. No,
I'm
for
sure a large portion of it will not exactly be as promised. Other things, PlayStation 5, 100 gigabyte Blu-ray disc compared to 50 gigs for PS4.
Yeah, and I remember that 100 what?
100 gigs for PS5.
I'm sorry, for the discs
A
that
ten-
your PS5 plays?
I thought you were talking about hard drive, and you got me very confused.
Oh, no,
but
no.
I was
So
going to say, I remember back with the PS4, that was like everyone was super excited about the, all of the technical specs because there was a lot of talk in the rumors leading up to there were a lot of developers saying it has to have this much RAM and it has to do these things, and it mostly met those, except I remember the hard drive was the one early sticking point where everyone was like 500 gigabytes, like that's not going to be enough.
Right.
And it did not take long, within like that first year, everyone was like, yeah, we're going to have to upgrade our hard drives because that's just not enough space at this point.
Yeah, it's like there's no way I could have multiple Call of Duty games installed on my PlayStation 4 at this point. It's just brutal. I haven't upgraded my hard drive.
Really?
It's really just like I can have like 2 games somewhere around there on my hard drive at any point. Yeah, it's just become absurd, right?
Yeah.
But upping up the actual storage on the Blu-ray disc for next generation, I think it's really interesting because I think quietly this generation, developers have been struggling so much with just getting that stuff on that disc. I remember visiting Naughty Dog for the Uncharted 4 cover story trip, and they were like, honestly, we have no idea how this is going to fit on a Blu-ray disc. Like, we'll figure it out later. But like right now, it seems inconceivable to cram it down to 50 gigs.
Yeah.
Even still, I mean, it's still going to be a problem, because games are just going to balloon and get bigger. So even if they double the size of the disc, like we're already like way beyond the size of,
Red Dead's already like over 100 gigs anyway.
Yeah,
right?
multiple discs. Yeah, for sure. I think one of the most insightful things I've ever seen about just developing games on a tech basis and trying to cram things down onto a Blu-ray is at GDC last year, there's a video which is public on YouTube now that's called Marvel's Spider-Man, a Technical Postmortem. Search that, search for GDC. But it's with like the tech lead at Insomniac, and he's talking about just the process of trying to get all the data to fit on a Blu-ray and what a nightmare it is, but then also just trying to get that to stream going through the city and just like all the tricks they had to pull and stuff like that, which is interesting then considering with the PlayStation 5 and when Wired got to see it that Marc Cerny's been demoing Spider-Man and just showing the solid state drive and how much faster load times are on this, which is exciting. But one of those things of like, yeah, but we'll see how the actual games load when they're designed for the PlayStation 5. Like towards the end of the generation, I don't think loading times are going to be gone immediately. It's just, it's going to be like playing on a PC. It's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Other stuff about PS5 you guys are excited about? Haptics controller. Do you care at all about that?
I guess we'll have to see. Like that feels like the functionality that'll be there, but not super well used if the other consoles don't use it.
3D rumble or the triggers on the back of the Xbox One controller. Like
Right.
Interesting, but we'll see if it actually is a factor at any point,
Yeah. So they showed off like GT Sport, except running on a PS5 for the Wired folks. I mean, is it just a given that we're going to see the next Gran Turismo at launch?
No.
I don't think so.
You wouldn't bet on that?
No. Those games...
It's been
It'll
a
be
while.
another 10 years, though.
Yeah.
I mean, GT Sport was pretty recent though, right?
God, I bet GT Sport's like 2014. Don't you think?
Feels a little more recent, but
Of course.
17.
It's exactly that. 2017.
I think whatever's next for Gran Turismo is probably pretty still far away.
Do you think?
Yeah.
God. Maybe they just would have an upgraded version of GT Sport,
I
though.
feel like that franchise is sort of diminished. I don't know if it's Forza like sort of competing with it or what, but like I feel like
it's just the release times.
Yeah, I mean, but I just feel like no one really cared about sport when it came out. You know, like it wasn't an exciting like, oh, new Gran Turismo. It was, just that new Gran Turismo's out.
What if it was GT Sport PS Plus edition? Oh, for the PlayStation 5. Not too shabby.
That was another talker, I think at E3 when they announced that you had to have PS Plus for PlayStation 4.
for
Right.
online stuff.
And
yeah.
people, and I think there was so much goodwill at that point. People were like, well, yeah, it was inevitable
100%.
sooner or
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
But then, is that when they first announced that you were getting free games as well every month?
I think
that-
so.
Maybe it was already in place with the PS3, but
Or did they start
that's
at that
interesting.
point?
It was because it was the E3 when Twisted Metal PS3 was announced. They announced PS Plus, and that was part of the deal is you got free games.
There it is.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Sweet. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully there's a February event. I hope it's big. I hope it's not just a state of play thing. I hope they actually have Jim Ryan going out on stage, giving the full presentation.
I mean, I will say, I think it will be, because like going back and finding the archive at the stream, it was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right? I think if there were to be another event, I think it'll be a lot shorter. I think they will spend less time on the tech details. I think getting that Wired article out there, like I feel like that sort of takes care of that. Because I mean, even listening to like Cerny talk about teraflops, so my eyes were kind of glazing over. Like I just don't think that that's for like, this event they want it to be like for the masses.
Yeah.
So I think it will focus a lot more on just like less techie talk. Because you can go track down those details if you want them, but I think it'll just like push on games more.
I bet it'll be techie talk, kind of high, pie in the sky type of stuff, and then around E3 they'll do the games.
But don't you think we already know those techie talk details? I mean,
not enough, I don't think.
The exciting things of like, those Wired articles, I feel like took the place of what was Cerny's opening monologue for the PS4 event.
I think they'll just repeat that.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll go into specifics. I think they'll talk about like, hey, this is our strongest console ever. And they'll have a video of like, developers saying like, oh, I love developing for PS5. It's so much more powerful than like. I don't think they'll talk about like, hey, this is how much RAM we have. This is like
I think there'll be fewer numbers. I think
they will have the one slideshow screen that has those bullet points, and they'll say techno blabble blah 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 blah, and this is what it does. This is why it's opening the world of the future.
Right.
And they'll show how fast Spider-Man loads or whatever, and.
Yes, but I think they'll lean into that stuff. But I think it's going to be less about like how much more powerful than the last generation is this, because I think like we are again shifting away from like horsepower to features, and I think they'll focus more on like here's how PS5 like ostensibly makes your life better, right?
Yeah.
Like they'll talk about like, hey, all your games are coming forward. You have a solid state drive now. The internet's better somehow. I don't know. Like, whatever. You
playing
won't
on
have
your
to
Vita will
install a game.
actually work.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll mention the Vita, maybe.
Yeah, that seems like a sure
And they'll
bet.
just look
Vita's
into they'll look
back.
into the camera and say, Kyle, this is for you, the only person who still
Everybody
has their Vita
shut-
consistently
shut- shut-
charged.
Kyle, listen to me.
Everyone stop listening. Kyle, the Vita, you'll be able to use it this time.
Jeff Markifava, you've been playing Journey to the Savage Planet?
What a transition! Yeah, I'm about a third of the way through.
Oh, is
at
that
this
right?
point. Yep.
So this game
played
is
a
like a
ton last night.
$30 game, $40 game. I believe it's like cheaper, but set this thing up. How would you describe Journey to the Savage Planet?
I would describe it as a funny No Man's Sky where all of the content has actually been developed purposely.
Yes, a
I'm
curated little experience. You can play co-op if you want, but it
So
feels
it's one planet. We shouldn't even say planet, but there are a bunch of different locations that you go to, but each one is built purposely. It's a lot of crafting and exploration. You are scanning all the different animals and stuff that you come across.
Yeah.
But then it's also puzzly as well. And so you're unlocking different abilities and stuff that will help you get to different areas.
Yeah, there were moments playing it last night, Connor. I was like, it's not. I was like, it's a little Metroid Prime. Just like slowly exploring like this alien world and realizing like, okay, I don't have this ability yet, but eventually I'll be able to
Go
craft
side
something
dash.
to eventually get over there.
So what you're telling me is
There is a side dash.
I will like this and I should play it.
I think you will like it. Yeah, I'm having a good time with it so far. I'm maybe like an hour and a half in, but what do you think of it, Jeff? Do you like it?
Yeah, I've been surprised by how much I do like it, and it feels like one of those early games that people should be paying attention to, especially now when there aren't as many games coming out. But I was surprised that it doesn't feel that indie to me. Like the production values are better than I would have expected.
Right. So it's developed by Typhoon Studios, who we know from Alex Hutchinson, who's the creative director. He's a lead designer on Spore, which kind of shows in some of those alien designs. Maybe I'm sure he thought of that as well. But then he's the creative director for Assassin's Creed 3, Far Cry 4, and then he was working on the Pioneer project at Ubisoft, that sci-fi game that was eventually canceled, which is then very funny because then at the very start of this game, they say, "Thank you for joining the Pioneer program." Like the big announcer, a little cheeky nod to that. But then it's published by 505, which 505's been on a solid streak recently with like Bloodstained and Control. And then like they're even publishing Death Stranding on PC. It's like, hey, way to go, 505.
And they did Indivisible too, right? Which is solid,
Is that right? Yeah. Well done. But yeah, I agree. Like it definitely is not as cheap as I was expecting, which is a bad sign. And just like the movement, I think I saw some reviews complaining about the shooting, but it's like it seems fine.
Yeah, I think it feels good.
Yeah.
Like every time I shoot something or like crystal structures and they explode and stuff, that feels good to me.
Yeah.
But I think the game does a good job of just giving you a bunch of tools that you then have to figure out how to use and do different things. And so there are certain doors that are basically just like a giant mouth with like a fan that goes around, and there are these little chicken enemies.
You're basically porgs on the planet. Yeah.
And so there are times where it's like, okay, well, this one is up in the air though, so how do I, and I'll bait an enemy over, and then you have these little spores that will create kind of a bouncy pad, so you have to figure out how you're going to get him up there and kind of unlock different areas through that kind of stuff. And it's all very goofy humor, which mostly works for me. I think there is actually some smart writing in there with you have an AI dialogue companion with you.
She's basically Janet from Good Place.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very similar to that. And I do like that kind of humor. I like kind of the goofy enemy design and stuff like that.
It's more cartoony. Even when you start, it's like, okay, it's a colorful world, but I don't think I got the cartoony vibe. And then every time there's any like first-person animation, it's like, oh, this is just Looney Tunes animation at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I keep being surprised by how cartoony it goes.
Yeah. Once you go back to your kind of home base, you had mentioned you're working for a corporation, and so that aspect of the humor doesn't work as much for me because it's kind of like over the top, stupid corporation things that corporations do, and I feel
which
like,
we also just played a big sci-fi game called Outer
We've gotten
Worlds.
so much of that recently, which isn't their fault that they came out so close together. But that's I kind of hem and haw my way through some of the video clips that go along with that, which they have live action video clips.
A lot of
the
like fake commercials. Yeah, Kyle, I think you'll like it.
That sounds cool. Is the co-op local? Is it split screen?
No, it's not.
It's not. Okay.
Sorry to bum you out. I was also bummed by that.
Yeah. No, you guys have sold me. I want to play it.
Great.
And I've been surprised. Like, I played through the first big area. I mean, it seemed very huge, and then I went through a warp tunnel, and it brought me to another entire, what seems like is going to be a very big area. But it is there, like all of the areas in one of the larger areas, they're all connected, and so you can figure out your way in. And there are some places that are kind of gated based on the tools that you have, but I was surprised by how much I could actually just figure out and get to different places. And then kind of when you look out and you see like, oh yeah, I was over in that area and now I can see that there's a secret over here that I should go investigate and stuff. It's a very satisfying mix of exploration and then the kind of crafting different components and stuff like that, with more puzzle stuff built in than you would find in most crafting games.
Right, and the entire point is just explore the planet. But then I love that it has a very clear objective marker too. Like, just hit this button. We'll tell you exactly where to go if you just want to speed this whole thing along. But the point is to explore. We swear. And what's crazy about the developers is that they are now Stadia developers. They were purchased before the release of this game, so they're going to be Stadia exclusive developers. I don't know if that means the future of this brand, because I guess the developers probably own the brand over 505. So it's a weird breakdown that way. But it's also an impossible to remember name. Journey to the Savage Planet. I was having a tough time. I'm like, Journey in the Savage, what is this? But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think I'll keep playing it. You think you're going to beat it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, good. Sergio Vasquez, Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah.
So this game, hey, this is perfect for this episode. This game came out in 2013.
Yeah.
Act 1 at least.
Act 1
and they've been slowly trickling out new episodes
and
of this adventure game.
interludes. Yeah, so I've been playing the Switch version, which is called the TV edition, which collects all 5 of the episodes and all 5 of the interludes. And I love this game. I think it's amazing. It is, to give you context, it's basically sort of a point-and-click adventure game. There's not really any puzzle solving. You're not ever really like, oh, you got to go grab this thing and put it over here to keep going. It's more like just a narrative-based game. But
it's always narrative first, gameplay second.
Yeah, and like I think my favorite thing about it is that like it is very elegant in how it changes itself to tell different stories, especially in the interludes, which are these things that they release between the proper acts. So every act is basically like a story, a series of stories basically that are delivered through this one running narrative where you are a man named Conway who is trying to deliver a package to an address that is like 5 Dogwood Drive, and he realizes it's not on any map. And eventually, he meets a number of other people that tell him like, "Well, that's on the Route 0." And so it's this like astral plane basically that he finds, and it's like it's this weird juxtaposition between like magical realism where there's just like people just acknowledge the existence of like very strange and ethereal things, but it also like and that takes all place in the 0. But there are also like you meet a kid in like I think the second act who rides a giant bird everywhere, and so and people are just like, this is totally normal. Like they never acknowledge how strange that is, right?
Yeah. So I played the first act. Kyle, are you in the same camp?
Yeah, first act and first interlude. Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of like, okay, I could see getting into this. It's nice to have an adventure game that I can play with a controller, especially with the TV edition now, and it doesn't feel finicky. It's like the UI is totally solid.
Yeah.
And it's just the writing
Yeah, I mean,
that
like,
eventually builds. Because the first act I enjoyed, but I was like, if I played this in 2013, I can't imagine I'd be screaming about it.
No, yeah, like I totally feel like I think I've played the first 2 episodes I played back when they came out, and I eventually, because the release schedule got so delayed, that I eventually just said I'll just wait until it's over. But I think it is the writing that I think is really strong, but as you go further down, it becomes more about like how the story is presented. So like that first interlude is like this series of museum exhibits that are taking place. Like, hey, this is Lulu Chamberlain, a character you haven't met. That it's like, hey, here's a series of like art installations that were very expensive to produce, and so it's like she eventually wasn't able to keep making them. And for them, like the developer Cardboard Computer, it was them kind of trying out a lot of different tech. But then eventually, like the second interlude, for example, is this thing called The Entertainment, which is like basically like a play that you're in the middle of. So you play the character of the barfly in a play called The Entertainment, and so you're seeing this play kind of unfold in front of you. But you also, at some point, there will be places where you stop and you turn around and you'll hear like notes from the person who tells you like, hey, this was originally 2 plays by this author that we kind of mashed together into this one thing. And then you'll look around in another part of the room and there will be reviews for like, hey, so like this actress was like, she was really strong. And it's like, again, Lulu Chamberlain, who's a character like that you meet in the second act. And so it's like, it works as this really cool way to like flesh out her life. And then you meet the character in the second episode, and so you learn more about her. And like, though they play around with perspective a lot, it feels a lot like a Resident Evil game in the way that
that's what's confusing is like even playing through the first act, suddenly it's like, wait, now I'm making dialogue choices for this
2
other
characters.
character, and then I'm also controlling them for a little bit. So I was trying to figure out like, so throughout the entire series, it's constantly shifting.
They do like there's I just got through Act 4, and like there's a really cool segment where you're playing as 2 different characters at once, and they kind of split up, and there's 2 separate dialogue boxes going at the same time that you're kind of going between each other, and then when they come back together, they combine again. And like Act 4, I think is like, which I just finished, like I think is amazing. And then one of the other interludes is just this hotline that you call into, and it's literally a hotline. You can call the number that they show you, and it'll be like you can play it the same way.
Oh,
and like
weird.
one of my favorite things that it does is that there are 2 like you can. It's about like this thing called the River Echo, and then you can, hey, to learn about the flora and fauna of this river, press 1 or whatever. But there are 2 specific places where they're like, if you're holding a snake in your hand right now, press 4 and we'll help you out with whatever reason you might be holding a snake. We'll try to guide you through it. And there's one that is like, what is your first memory, and why can't you fall asleep right now? And so you can call, and like apparently I think in Act 4 there's a character, Will, who runs that hotline, and at some point he answers a phone, and you're listening to what I think is a bunch of people's answers to that prompt that were sent into the hotline.
Oh, weird.
So you hear it's like I think the first time you actually hear voices in the game where there's a bunch of people saying like, here's why I can't sleep, here's why, and it's like woven like. It's not directly involved in the story, but like they contextualize that part of the game really well. And so like those interludes I think are really playful. Like the game itself is really playful with how it changes and shifts perspective to center, like to make sure the story is good. You change protagonists very quickly in a lot of ways. Like there will be a time where you're running around the parking lot as Conway, and it kind of very seamlessly shifts to running around as Ezra, this little kid that you find, and now the story is about him for a little while. And so like it is, I think it is like an immaculately made game that is constantly like warping itself into something else. Like later on, like that hotline can be a little bit of an ARG. So the narrative thing that you get out of it is a thing that you basically have to go wiki, because there's like Morse code involved and things like that that'll deliver like, hey, this is where, this is maybe a hint as to where Dogwood Drive might be. And then later on, they just straight up released like an episode of public access that you can go look up. That is mentioned in episode 4, and as a lead into episode 5, you can watch these. Like they talk about like, hey, this at one point this lady did something involving a PBS station, basically, and then you can go watch like the thing that they are talking about separate from the game.
Wow! So it feels like at the end of the year, people are going to be talking about this game. I don't think to the extent of like Disco Elysium, but a little bit in that same vein of like narrative focused. It's thoughtful, introspective. Yeah.
So like I want to talk about the structural stuff, but I think also like the narrative that it is telling about. It's a lot of it's like a ton of vignettes about like, here's this working person's job. Here's what this person has done for their entire life. And the running through line is, here's how like this consolidated power company has been basically screwing people over by buying everything up and like basically becoming a monopoly here, and how they've very slowly been exploiting their workers. And it's like a very labor oriented thing. And this person is making the last delivery that they're ever going to make. And eventually he goes into debt, things like that. Like it's a very somber story that is enhanced by both a lot of the magical realism elements, because like even navigating the Route Zero later on is like, you guys have both played the first act, right? So you see the map that it looks like a highway map.
Hey, again, let's really break this down, because this is one of my favorite things that I've seen so far this year. I love that map.
Yeah, that map is really cool.
Route Zero. It's crazy. So it's just like this overhead map where you see the roads, some objects in there, and then you control a tire that rumbles more than you could possibly imagine.
And it's supposed to represent your truck.
Right. And then you just control it around. So it's like a weird adventure game prompt where it's like, oh yeah, you could take a right, I think.
Go past the observatory, and then it'll be on your left. And
you'll figure it out there. And it's like you actually have to navigate that. But it's such a cool layout. I've never seen it before.
They iterate on that concept in some like amazing ways. So once you get into the Route Zero, because it is an ethereal plane, directions work very differently. So it'll be like you start it. It's basically like a donut. And so the instructions will be navigate clockwise until you reach the anchor, then turn around and go counterclockwise until you reach this other thing. And like the landmarks that you're navigating past change depending on the direction you're going. So it's this very like, it can be a little confusing, but later on you get like a character who will be like, do you want me to just take you where you're supposed to go? That's fine. Let's just go there.
Yeah.
And so like that, and then later on when you're flying on the bird, it's like over that same highway that, you have in the first act, you're just kind of flying over it, and you have to take it to a specific spot. And so like, and then Act 4, they do like a boat thing, which is also like very good. But like, the story that it's trying to tell, I think, is really like down to earth and very somber and like extremely well written. But I think it's like the way that it's told that I think makes it like, it's not just like a really good book that you happen to be interacting with. I think the form of the game, I think, is one of the most interesting things about it. I will say that it can be a little dense. I think it can be, because you are hearing so much about like local life and people working, it can be maybe a little dry at times. So I would definitely say like play one act and then kind of take a break. Don't try to marathon it, which I sort of tried to do, and that's when it got a little frustrating.
Sure.
Because those acts definitely get longer as they go along. So I definitely don't try to beat the game in one sitting, or like even the later acts in one sitting. But
what a wild development story this game is. Just the fact that they've been slowly trickling this stuff out, and the community's like, finally play it, everybody. It's all out there now. You're out of excuses.
So the thing that I would advise people to do is like to make things less like kind of obtuse is when you get to Here and There Along the Echo, which is one of the interludes, just wiki that. And like, because there are a number of things that you want to do to get the most out of that interlude. It's the one where it's a phone line. Because otherwise you're going to feel like, why is this here? It's like, kind of confusing if you don't know what it's doing. And then go after you beat chapter or act 4, like Google, I think it's WEP-TV, Kentucky Route Zero, and you'll find that episode of public access television that characters reference. So there's a lot of like
this feels
form
very
break-
intimidating. I feel like people are like adventure game already. I don't know, and then like
Yeah,
okay,
but
narrative heavy adventure game. I don't know.
I think if you play if you get to the second act and you're not kind of feeling like the very like Twin Peaksy vibe, then it's probably not for you. I definitely don't think that this is like everyone should play this, but it's like if you connect with any of the themes in the first act, like definitely keep going. I think it only gets more intense from there. It gets way more hyper specific. It gets way more like weird as the game goes on. But yeah, I'm super in love with it right now.
Oh, that's great. And Kyle, are you gonna keep playing?
Yeah, I'm definitely in the like, I don't think I get it yet mode.
Sure.
Like there's that sequence you were talking about where suddenly you're given the choices of another character and like, so you have no context who she is. She's on the phone and you're dictating her answers.
Yeah.
But it's like...
And it's a confusing thing of like, oh, so I'm inventing a lot of the backstory here. It's like, it's all hinged from my perspective of like, oh, even the dog in the beginning, you're like choosing what your dog is named.
And the thing that helped me, I believe it was Elise's review on Watching Post. Like, I think it was hers. Basically said like, you're not really dictating the story as much as you're dictating the tone.
Yeah.
And that helped me a lot. Like, because that conversation, like specifically that, I was like, this is just weird for the sake of weird. I have no context for what this is. None of these answers mean anything to me.
Yeah.
But then like sort of having that mindset of like, well, wait, if I make her responses more angry, then that kind of sets her tone. And that like that made me a little more interested in continuing of like understanding that baseline of like, okay, you're not like the sort of the details of what she's talking about aren't as important as how it feels.
Yes.
And that helped me, but like I definitely had this moment of like, this just kind of feels like it's being weird for the sake of weird and obtuse for the sake of being obtuse, you know?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think you should be less focused with what you said. I think you should be less focused with like, okay, I need to put together the plot of this game like it was a puzzle. I think it is way less concerned with that than like what you're taking away with it, which is I think because when I interviewed them for a feature at Game Informer, like they were talking about how they took a lot from surrealist media, a lot of like French surrealist filmmakers, which is sort of where David Lynch comes from. So it's less about like what just happened and more about like how did what just happened make me feel?
Yeah.
But there is this underlying current of like, there is an A to B plot that you can discern pretty easily.
Yeah.
But it's just like there are going to be a lot of moments where you're like, I don't know where this is going. Are they going to connect? Like, here's an anecdote. Is this going to come back later? Like, I think if you're just go with it, I think it's kind of like just kind of go on the ride. Don't be so concerned with like, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and like having that mindset, it's like has made me a little more eager to go into the second act.
Yeah.
You know? But one thing I want to mention is like, I love the way the game looks. It's got like a really cool sort of dark
and
style.
it's more dynamic than I thought.
Yeah, it's
too.
like it's not just like it'll start with like a still shot of like here's the gas station and it'll pan very well depending on where your character is going. There's like as you're heading down an escalator, reveal the basement in a really like well done way. And I think like this was a really small team, so I totally get why there was so much delay. Especially like some of those interludes feel like, oh, I see why this took so long is because they had to put together basically a totally different game for this to work the way it did.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see why the game took so long to come out, and it still feels relevant. Like I played that first act, and it still feels like it doesn't feel dated or anything like that. It's just it's still and it's still
it's so
coherent.
nice that like of all the genres, a game that has taken this long to come out, like going for kind of a simplified retro adventure game in some ways. It's like, oh, okay, this will not age horrifically throughout time. So playing it all as one chunk, it doesn't scream 2013 like an action game or something like that. Yeah. Kentucky Route Zero is that game.
Out on Switch, did that TV edition, is that coming anything else?
PS4.
PS4.
And I think on PC you might have to buy like a DLC or something to get all the interludes. But
because I didn't have an interlude between Act 1 and Act 2.
Yeah, so I think on PC I think you might have to download those separately, or they might just be online or something. But like, yeah, so seek those. If you're playing on PC, definitely seek those interludes out because they're super important, I think, in a lot of
Really?
cases.
Super important?
Like one of them like basically tells you, Lula Chamberlain is a pretty big part of the early part of the game. So you want those two first interludes to tell you more about her.
Okay, there it is. Disintegration. We didn't play too much, but there's a technical beta going on. This is from Private Division. They're publishing this thing, and it's from one of the Halo co-creators is how it's built. Somebody who used to be at Bungie back in the day, and now they're making a multiplayer shooter, but it's a little strange.
Yeah.
This is a weird
I think
point
I
of
know where you're
comparison.
going. You want to say it at the same time?
Hang on, let me remember. Yes.
So 1, 2, 3, then say it?
Yes.
Okay,
1, 2, 3. Brutal Legend.
Yep.
Wow.
And let's move
Now
on
you
to
guys have
feedback.
to kiss each other.
Oh, okay.
1, 2, 3. Yes, absolutely. Where it's a shooter, but you play as a grav cycle where you're just, it's a grav cycle shooter.
Look, if Kentucky Route Zero makes sense to you, I don't know why you're confused.
This
about
is
it.
stranger than Kentucky Route Zero already. What's the graph cycle?
You're a floating machine robot thing, and then you're commanding your smaller troops, so it feels like an RTS in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So my biggest takeaway is don't put too much stock in it came from a Halo guy. Don't expect Halo going into
Correct.
it because it is. And I mean, I guess you can kind of tell that it probably came from someone who has made too many similar shooters and they wanted to try different mechanics and different ideas.
For sure.
Because that was my biggest takeaway from it. Yeah. So you are kind of the hovering. I think you're a guy inside of a weird hovering mech thing. I don't think you're a robot.
The trailer shows a guy like talking to it in his garage, and he's like, "We're gonna do this, car."
Let's both remember Halo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so you're kind of floating above the battlefield. You can move up and down and however you want.
With Kakarot controls.
Yeah,
It's true, actually.
Yeah.
That's not maybe an
So
appealing
that's
point.
that's a selling point. But yeah,
So yeah, it's Brutal Legend with Kakarot controls. We got it. Let's
yeah.
move on.
Okay.
But then you have soldiers that you're kind of commanding, and you can tell them where to go or who to attack and stuff.
But this is also a shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because
as the
you
grav
also-
cycle, you can shoot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you also have your own guns, and then it is a multiplayer game. So the matches I played were kind of you had to defend or attack a couple different points on the map.
Yeah.
And so you have like 4 or 5 teammates who are also these hovering motorcycles with their own units, and then you're going up against the other team and shooting. So it is a very weird mix of first-person shooting, but also, I mean, in terms of first-person shooting, you're still kind of this slow, floating, tanky.
It's weird to have, such a floaty.
Yeah, so
main character
it's
in
not,
a shooter.
It's certainly not based on your twitch reflexes or anything like that. But then you're also commanding your own characters.
So what is the is the idea that you're attacking other people's groups, or is there like a central structure that you're trying to destroy?
This multiplayer mode, you were trying to defend these 2 spots that the invading team was trying to attack. So you're trying to cut them off with your own troops and make sure that they.
I found that people were just kind of in a standoff. I didn't feel like the fights were very dynamic, but it's the beta, and I don't think anybody knows what they're doing. I certainly didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, but I can see that. But I guess my matches were kind of like that too, just because it feels so weird because you move very slowly. You do kind of have like a boost function or whatever, but you're moving very slowly. And I guess in the matches I was playing, most people were spending more time commanding their characters than outright attacking each other.
Right.
And so, you would kind of have a bunch of the human players floating above the battleground shooting each other's, command units, as opposed to spending too much time. I think I died like once because most of the time you can't like capture the control point or bring the thing back yourself. You're kind of telling your units to do it, so there's more focus on the actual units than the other actual human players. So it was an interesting but very weird mix of mechanics and gameplay ideas. And if you're coming into it like I was, I'm more interested in actual traditional first-person shooters, so I didn't have as much appeal. I'm not a huge RTS guy either.
Yeah.
So
it's a fun fusion. It's fun to see developers going for something new in Private Division, funding such a strange take.
And it says it has a campaign. So I'm a little more interested in seeing what that is.
I'd love to know what the story is, because it's one of those things like, okay, I think I got it. Sci-fi world, got it. And then you choose your crew
Yes.
in Disintegration. It's like, what is this?
They're having a lot of fun with the
They're
different.
having a laugh because the different crews are like, oh, you can be the crazy clowns, you can be the Mad Max folks, or the samurai robots. Like the teams are so
or
much
gangster robots, which is
and then your car
weird.
is like a lowrider, or your flying grav cycle is like a lowrider. It is
It's
more
very weird.
wacky than I expected. It's like, okay, sci-fi. Then you get in there, it's like, oh, and suddenly it feels like Time Splitters or something. Like it's just a
the
weird
trailer
flavor.
has like a punchline at the end. It's
Yeah.
like you're talking to your car very seriously, but then someone else from your crew is like, "Hey, what are you doing, idiot?" You know. So it's like they're going for that tone, I guess. Like
Yeah.
they want it to be kind of say like a brutal legend maybe or something like that.
Oh, yes, exactly like a brutal legend. Disintegration is the name of the game. I think they just said it's coming out 2020. I don't think they said exactly when it's,
Yeah,
when it's
I
happening
think the
yet, but-
beta's already over. Was it
Yeah, I
just
think they're going to
Monday
have
and Tuesday?
an open beta as well
Yeah,
pretty soon
that's
as well.
coming
So if
up,
you want to check it out and try to define it as well as we have.
It's certainly unique. Like even
Yeah.
though we draw the line to brutal legend, like it still feels distinct, but like
yeah,
similar. you know?
yeah, it's interesting. Curious to see where it goes. You guys want to move on to the next segment?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Cyril, do you know how this whole thing operates? What keeps us in this frozen basement?
Yeah.
Bubbly.
But
That's
that's right,
bubbly. Water.
bubbly, and a lack of air condition or a lack of heating. But
can't wait-
Patreon.
Patreon.com/MinnMax, two ends, and the support of the community overall. They've been absolutely fantastic. If you would like to support us, I think it'd be a good idea. Plus, you get access to this podcast a day early, the audio version at the $5 tier. So definitely check that out if you'd like to listen on Wednesdays instead of Thursdays. What's wrong with you, sillies?
I just liked your statement of, if you want to donate, I think it'd be a good idea.
We're asking
I
for your
don't know.
support again.
Yes. Also, just a reminder, not a reminder, telling the world that come February, there might be a little extra incentive for the $10 tier. A funky little boost. Let's just say it might be something real nice. Anyways, moving on. Very exciting. We have a new sponsor for the MinnMax show and MinnMax overall. HyperDot. It's a video game. Here we go. HyperDot is a minimal action arcade masterpiece with one rule: dodge everything. It features over 100 levels in the single-player campaign, a frenzied multiplayer mode, and a level editor to design custom challenges. HyperDot releases tomorrow, January 31st, on Xbox One and Steam. This is very exciting. This is published by Glitch. If you're from the Game Informer community, you probably remember GlitchCon that brought everybody together. We had live replays there and stuff like that. They're wonderful friends of the show, and they're releasing HyperDot. But Jeff, have you been playing it?
Yeah, I played a bunch of it, and it's nice. Again, we have a sponsor that they're actually making a good game, so we don't have to worry about that. But I would say it's what I thought of was it is like a bullet hell shoot 'em up without the actual. You're not doing any shooting.
Yeah.
So you just have to avoid the different shapes in the circle arena that you're in. But what's interesting about it is that each level has some kind of unique twist to it, and so some of them have different power-ups and like the different way. Obviously, like the different ways that the shapes are coming in and everything changes every level too. But I was just surprised that every single level, and I played like 60 of them or something, but
Yeah.
everyone has a different twist to it, which is unique and interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And like you can play multiplayer as well, and it's kind of Smash Brothers in a way where you can set so many individual criteria. So it's like you can play with 4 players, and then just every level, like all the different settings are randomized. So it's like, okay, just try and survive. All you're doing is trying to dodge it, do it again and again and again, but really satisfying. HyperDot. Yeah, what a godsend that the two games we're talking about on the show that are
No
supporting us.
stinkers yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so definitely check it out. But thanks so much.
dot.
To the dot, as they say. And also, you might notice, it's not the 1st of February. It's weird that we're kicking off a new sponsor. They requested it because their game's coming out on January 31st on Xbox One and Steam. So it's like, we're flexible. If you want to start halfway through a month or something, we'll still make it 4 episodes, but we'll make it work. Also, hey, Superhero Cinema Scoop, Riley Hill here. He says, Superhero Cinema Scoop is proud to sponsor MinnMax. Superhero Cinema Scoop is a new YouTube channel dedicated to bringing you all the up-to-date news on your favorite superhero movies, shows, and video games. News from Marvel, DC, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Spawn, and many more are represented. Videos are uploaded at least once a week and can be enjoyed by the whole family. Just search for Superhero Cinema Scoop on YouTube, and remember that cinema spelled with an S. Don't forget it. He uploaded a video recently about like rumors about maybe what Rocksteady's working on, about Captain Marvel 2's development, stuff like that. And actually checking out Riley's YouTube channel here for Superhero Cinema Scoop is how I learned that they canceled that Howard the Duck cartoon that Marvel was making.
I
on
learned
Hulu.
that it was in development at the same time that I learned it was canceled.
Well, yeah, because Kevin Smith was working on it.
Oh,
And
really?
as somebody who listens to all of his stuff, it's weird that just quietly is like, it was announced and then never really acknowledged in any of his podcasts.
They must
and
have
now
looked
just
at
canceled.
the sort of how successful the original film was and was like, oh, wait, what are we doing?
You can't just bring up anything back and it'll be successful. Damn
I
it.
think they might have seen Jay and Silent Bob reboot and said, oh, wait, what now? No.
Well, that's like got a 64% Rotten Tomatoes earned.
That's shocking.
Okay.
Is it really?
Yeah.
It's
Can we
higher.
double check now? Now I want to double check.
Kevin Smith's legacy is better than Star Wars.
Oh, is that what
now.
you're looking at? Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker
Which is, yeah. This is going to be
is
embarrassing if I'm wrong.
52%.
Okay.
Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Is it literally called Reboot? Mm-hmm. That's
Yes.
dumb.
Reboot to the
it's
nooch.
funny.
Oh, okay.
It's like Triceratopper.
No, it's no Triceratops.
You bring up that soundtrack.
52% to 69%.
69% fresh, certified fresh.
Nice.
So you're saying
I dare you to watch that movie. And look, I think it's his best movie in a while, but I'm just saying I dare you to watch that
And then
movie.
record a podcast about it called Max Spoilers.
there we go.
Ooh. I have to
but then
watch
I
it
have to
again.
watch it. Oh, no.
Anyways, thanks again to Superhero Cinema Scoop and HyperDot for sponsoring the show and helping us out. They support MinnMax, so please support them. I think you'll have a good time with HyperDot too, so definitely check it out. At least look at a trailer, because I think it'll scratch an itch for a lot of folks out there. So a lot of people sent in wonderful comments, questions, words of wisdom, anything that makes the show better, trivia, dares, stuff like that on Patreon. Patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns. People leave a comment. We have a post up there every Tuesday afternoon looking for wonderful questions that people always send in. First one here, DBRG13.
Dr. Big.
Dr. Big.
Dr. Big 13.
He says, hey
Get it right.
guys, I really enjoyed the MinnFax call-in this month, and I'm glad you're deciding to continue it in the future. I'll be going in on the $20 tier for February, and I'm still confused about how the call-ins work. Is it a stream that you join in, or is it through Discord? Great question. So MinnFax is like our basically bonus podcast, kind of behind the scenes of MinnMax that is exclusive to supporters of the Patreon. So that goes live, and then and it's all like a Q&A based thing on the stream. But then once a month, starting with January, where we tried it, Jeff, on
That's
recently,
right.
where we had a call-in
Successfully.
episode. Yes. So we're going to be having folks call in, and they can come talk to us, ask us any question they want. And it was a super fun time. And so the way that works is through the Discord. So if you support us on Patreon, then you get access to the Discord at any tier. And if you support us at the $20 tier, which is the call-in tier or the Q&A tier, then you'll get access to a private channel in that Discord. You can jump in there, and then when the time comes, I will advertise saying, hey, we're ready to call you up. You can say, hey, call me next, and then we'll call you next and have a lovely chat. Yeah, people were so nice.
They were.
And everyone's mic quality was, wow.
It was really weird. Yeah. How nice everyone sounded.
Yeah.
Which I guess is that just like a generational thing of like people buy nice mics now because they spend so much time online or
Well, I
something?
think
I wonder
our
if the overall
community-
average of mics has gotten better.
Oh, yeah,
I think
that's true,
Fortnite.
too.
Well, I remember with Fortnite, everyone saying that like headsets and mics were like flying off the shelves, and that was the reason.
Yeah. Well, I think our community in general, I mean, it could be a generational thing, but like they just play games online with their
More
friends a lot.
interested.
They're more
Yeah, for sure.
disparate across the country. And stuff.
So February, it'll be, I think February 23rd is the Sunday. The last Sunday of the month is when we do the call-in episode, and let us hear your mics.
Your sweet, sweet voice.
Okay, let's move on. All right, an Attack Corgi says, Hansen recently tweeted about molasses being the food everybody talks about but no one cooks with. On a list of games everyone talks about versus actually played/completed, which game is number one?
Rogue.
Oh, of course it's Rogue. I was really racking my brain trying to
But
think
are
about
they
this.
actually... do people actually talk about Rogue, or is it just because
The
we
genre.
say roguelike so
Does
much?
it, does it count as
referenced.
talking about Rogue when you say roguelike?
I think it
Did
does.
I just talk
that's a
about
tough question.
Rogue?
I don't
Well,
know.
besides
I
the
don't
fact
think
that
so.
I... Never mind.
I think roguelike counts as talking about Rogue in a weird way, right?
No,
I think it does.
it's a genre.
Do you think?
But it's
Yeah.
it would be calling it would, if we called like Zelda-like
Yeah.
or something. Right?
It's 100%
Or a
Rogue.
Metroidvania.
Yeah, because I was thinking like on a lighter end of the spectrum, like, you think about those games that I think maybe critics like and read into, but then sales, not that great. Something like a Florence, right? Or like I
sure,
remember
sure.
at GDC last year, the developers of Florence are like, we barely broke even despite being like Apple's game of the year and all this stuff. It's just the average people, they don't want to play some story-based game, even though I really like Florence.
I was gonna say Persona 5 in terms of actually finishing.
I, as a slam to you, was going to say Red Dead Redemption 2 in terms of actually finishing.
Next question.
But honestly, like I think a lot of the Rockstar games, if you're talking about finishing,
Yeah, that's true.
everybody will talk about GTA 5, but raise your hand if
credit.
you finished GTA 5.
Yeah.
I finished.
Did you finish it?
Anyways, yeah, so Rogue. it's got to be Rogue. Kieran Robinson says, what unannounced game from any game studio are you most excited for? I'm really keen on seeing a next-gen Rocksteady game. I'd also love to see what Team Eco are working on for PlayStation 5. That'll probably end up coming out for the PlayStation 6. Yeah, what do you guys think? What's the number one unannounced game that you're most excited to learn more about?
It's Rockstar's new IP, which we have
right.
already established is going to be a new IP.
That's great predictions.
Those answers are both really good. What are they? They're not Team Ico anymore. What are they?
Gen Design?
Gen Design. Yeah, there's a little you can find a little teaser of something. There's like a woman on a pedestal next to like some giant creature. A humanoid creature. But then for me, I'll play dead. Like they've teased things, but they haven't announced anything. That's one for me for sure. But Rocksteady, is a good answer.
Rocksteady, I think, has to be the biggest one of the industry. One I'm really curious about is Concerned Ape, like the Stardew Valley developer.
I think he's just making Stardew Valley. Like, didn't he?
I mean, it seems like they're making so many updates and stuff like that. So I hope that's not slowing them down too much. But
10 million sold recently, right? Something insane like that.
It's so good though. But in Jason Schreier from Kotaku, his book, the chapter on Stardew Valley in that book is unbelievable, but unbelievably good. But then at the end, they tease that he really wants to make a game about bug collecting. And so that just like sets my mind on fire that you're like, oh my God, if he's like
wants
going
to make Pokemon.
He wants to make Pokemon.
Yeah.
Talk about money.
Talk about it.
Well,
He
Temtem
can make
beat
a
him
lot
to
of it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Temtem always beats you to it.
That's what they always say.
Here's a weird one, though, that somebody tweeted my way. Phil Spencer tweeted, great update today with Darren Gallagher and Matt Booty and the team at The Initiative, which is Microsoft's new studio in Santa Monica.
Okay.
Incredibly talented studio challenging themselves to do new things and old things, smiley face, in new ways. Now, what do you think that means? Does that mean multiple games or just a new twist on an old Microsoft IP?
I don't know. God.
Here's an extra wrinkle. Look at this.
What's that game? Brute Force. Brute Force.
Yep. So there's also somebody retweeted that and then had the quote saying, Phil Spencer at E3 2018 said, I think Daryl Gallagher, who heads The Initiative, really loved his time at Crystal Dynamics reworking Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. We were talking about some things in our past that might be interesting, things he might want to go work on. It was so weird to me that he mentions Lara Croft, and this is stupid and reductionist, so tell me if this is a stretch.
No, it's Perfect Dark.
It's Perfect Dark, right?
Yeah.
The fact that he goes out of his way to mention Lara Croft and Tomb Raider and like rebooting things from the past, like it's like, well, you did one female character, do it again now with Perfect Dark. But also, I think
that's what they're doing.
I think that's probably what they're doing.
Perfect Dark 02.
That's right, Perfect Dark 1.
Yeah. That's right. They just call the next one Perfect Dark 1.
Which is
What would they call it? It would have some subtitle,
Well,
right?
it'd be Perfect Dark
Dark?
Series 1.
Yes,
Right.
I believe that's right. Yeah, that's such a weird idea. Like, I would want somebody to just make a multiplayer focused version of Perfect Dark, but it's The Initiative and it's like a lot of talent coming from Crystal Dynamics that's heading up this new studio. It's like, oh, would they lean into like a story focused like reboot, really telling Joanna Dark's story? I don't think that's what I want, but I would like to see something happen with Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's up the list for me now, just thinking about the possibility that this could be
Most excited unannounced game. That's your new answer?
I guess my answer is whoever's making Perfect Dark, then I want to see that. Yeah, that's exactly it. Let's see. Adam Wagner says, hey, Maximilian Pagasi.
Okay.
Maximilian Pagasi? That's probably some joke.
Millman? Yeah.
Adam says, I've been playing Chrono Trigger on DS and I'm having a blast. I like toting my DS around in my pocket. I never realized how much I missed it. I want to keep playing the DS after finishing Chrono Trigger for the deepest dive. Are there any DS games that are a must play?
Oh, man.
Next up, I'm planning to play The World Ends With You and Layton's Unwound Future.
It's weird because
DS
I think a
games.
lot of the DS games might be hard to find at this point. I think it's kind of reached that point where you're kind of paying a premium to find like good DS titles because they're not. It's not like they've been ported, right? Like a lot of them haven't been.
Yeah. I would suggest Dawn of Sorrow, Order of Ecclesia, Portrait of Ruin, all the Castlevania DS.
In that, honestly, kind of in that order.
Yeah, Dawn of Sorrow is my maybe even like over Symphony of the Night. Like
I would say like
Castlevania.
Really?
I think Ecclesia is maybe my favorite, but like
It's hard.
Yeah, so like that's why I say Dawn of Slaughter is probably the one
Yeah.
to play first. It does have that weird like touchscreen stuff, which I'm not like a fan of, but it's pretty minimal.
Yeah, it's good.
I think Ghost Trick Phantom Detective is probably
Yep.
my favorite
Yeah.
DS game. That game is fantastic because it's definitely in the vein of like something like Layton, where it's like this very wacky puzzle oriented game. Tetris DS is maybe
that's a good one.
Talk about hard to find,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah, that one's super rare.
Elite Beat Agents.
Elite Beat
Kamiden.
Yeah.
Maybe. I never played Kamiden. I don't know
yeah,
if
that's
that's actually
true.
worth it.
You overlook it? I think one of the best games on DS is Pokemon Soul Silver.
Oh, yeah.
If you
yeah.
never played that remake.
Yeah, if you can, and then if you can find the little pedometer, too, with it.
Pokewalker.
Yeah.
The Advance Wars DS, probably top 10 games of all time. So
There it
you
is.
should play that.
And I guess you can play the Zeldas. They're fine.
Channeling Joe Juba, because he just submitted feedback on the Deepest Dive, I will say Radiant Historia, if you like JRPGs. Also, a little Chrono Trigger in there with some time travel stuff, so might be up your alley.
Sure.
I've tried starting that game twice, and it seems cool. I just have never finished it. Mark Ramirez says, I've missed Jeffem's articles about his wife's thoughts on the games he's been playing. I would love to hear her recent judgments / interests.
Well, most recently, she just finished her nursing program, and she has to study for.
Congratulations to her.
Well, not yet.
Oh.
She has to study for
So
the.
like Regis Philbin, Sully Kyle.
She has,
Congratulations to her. That's what I was going for.
perfect. She has to study for the giant licensing test.
Oh,
okay.
And so recently, whenever I'm playing a game, she's always studying, but I have to pick a game that isn't too story centric because then it completely distracts her. And so like the entire time I was playing Dragon Ball, it was too much of a distraction because she'd be like, what's going on now? What's going on?
Really?
And she has more of a like passing knowledge base of Dragon Ball than I do because of her brothers. And so it was like, well, all right, I'll play something else that's not talking about things. And then I started
Did she ever correct you on
Indivisible.
something?
Did she ever what?
Did she ever correct you on something like, no, Majin Vegeta and Super Saiyan Vegeta are the same person?
Yeah, because I sit around and talk about the plot of Dragon Ball so much when I'm at home.
I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's our lives.
Yeah, but I still get the question every now and then of what's this game about, and I try very hard not to just say it's another game. Like that really upsets her because it's like me just blowing her off. But then it's like, well, it's called Children of Morta, and we are a family that's going and delving into dungeons for some reason. But that one was also too distracting for her.
But
so.
Indivisible wasn't?
No, it was.
Okay,
It
I
is,
was about
yeah.
to say. Yeah.
That was the other one I started, and she was like, wait, now who's that character? Where are they now? Like,
That's very
Where'd
sweet.
the bad guy go? And I was like,
He's inside my head.
I'm going to go play more Chrono Trigger because there's no voices to distract you.
Couldn't
What
you
about
just
headphones?
Yeah, couldn't you just wear headphones?
Yeah, I mean, I could, but whatever.
I could solve the problem, but
Then you can't talk to your wife.
Yes.
That's true. Victor Pham, killer question saying, hey, what's a country you haven't been to but would like to?
Australia.
I'd like to go to England.
You've never been to merry old England?
No.
What would you like to do there?
I don't just kind of walk around. That's what I like to do in most new cities that I go to. Is just kind of walk around, like not have anything on the itinerary, and just be like, have maybe one recommendation. Like, oh, you should totally visit the whatever place, but like kind of walk near my hotel and just kind of see what's going on. Like that's what I like
That's nice.
to do.
I had a weird moment, I think, in high school where I remember I was at a party and I was talking to my friends and I was like, you know what? Wouldn't it be fun just to go to England and mess with those royal guards? Like, that's something we can do in our lives. Why aren't we doing that?
They probably shoot you nowadays, though, right?
I don't think so, because then I went to Buckingham Palace with Ben Reeves and Jeff Cork on one of our trips to England. We actually got to like talk to the guards. They weren't like the tall hat ones, but there were other guards at Buckingham Palace, and they were like the coolest guys. We like filmed a little video with them and stuff of like Ben Reeves and Jeff Cork meeting them and stuff. It was very sweet. But for me, it's Australia too.
Yeah.
I think that's number one. Is just in New Zealand. I would take in a pinch.
Yeah,
because if I
yeah,
had
yeah.
to. But people from Australia, let us know where to go in Australia. Is it just Sydney?
Yeah, and let us know why
David
Dan Tack
Milner's
visited you.
house.
I don't want to get into that.
Oh yeah, David Milner's house.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
There you go.
You
Just
can show us
crash.
But
around.
he's outside of Sydney. Is he in Melbourne?
Hey, Australia's Australia, man.
Yeah.
How big could it
it's
be?
all the outback, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I would go to Italy
Ah.
and just stay there forever.
You haven't been there
my
yet.
people.
I thought
No.
didn't you at one point vacation there?
No, I want to.
You haven't even been to a little part of Italy?
What are you doing?
Evan
What are you doing?
McHugh. Evan McHugh says, are you playing on March 20th Doom Eternal or Animal Crossing? Which are you booting up first?
Doom.
Animal Crossing?
Doom.
Neither. But probably Animal
You're
Crossing.
gonna take that day off?
Yeah.
No gaming from me.
Between the two, I'll probably check out Animal Crossing, but it'll just be a reminder that I don't really like Animal Crossing.
Don't prejudge it.
All right.
It's on an island this time.
Oh.
Zach Wojnar, former intern, said, "Hey guys, this will make the show better."
Good.
All right,
Thank
Zach.
you.
He said it.
He said it like that. He
Guaranteed.
said it
All
like
right.
that.
Makes the show better.
He says Doom
Do it.
Eternal looks cool, and one of the things I really like about it is that you can trace the feel of the game all the way back to the original Doom and Doom 2. When I was a kid, I was aware of Doom, but never really got around to playing the originals until I got Doom 3 BFG Edition on PlayStation 3, and I was astounded by how well those original classics still held up. My question to you is, when did you first play Doom?
When it first came out, because I'm old.
Is that right? What's
Yeah.
your memory of first playing Doom?
I think it was one of my friends' mom used to play it.
What?
And yeah, and she would
The
also
Doom mother.
Yes, and she would also chain smoke, and so she would have her cigarette in her mouse hand as she was like controlling it.
And you're
She was
like,
pretty
I need to
badass.
be you.
And I've devoted myself to that ever since. But yeah, no, I played I think I played the shareware version because I didn't know how to, buy PC games back
Yeah.
then. But it was always that was kind of enough of a game at that point when I was that age. So
I think my first experience with Doom was playing the horrific first-person section of Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, where you're like unlocking the key cards. Now I realize, like, oh, that was just them going for Doom. But at the time, I was like, this part sucks. What is this going for?
Someone made a whole game out of this?
Yeah. I've never played those old Doom games.
Yeah, I think my first experience with Doom was the 2016 reboot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
you guys have never played the original?
No.
A little bit. I think I played,
None of you.
I played Doom 2 at a friend's house, and I think when it came out on Xbox Live Arcade, I played through the intro of Doom 1.
Yeah, you should seriously go back and play them because I think the level design is still really interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All right. We could try playing it here if you want to at some point.
Sure.
I'd be curious to try and check it out. Holden Hints. Oh,
Molden for Holden?
Holden for Holden.
Holden from Holden.
He says, I finally played just one, that board game, with 5 other people, and had a blast in a cooperative party setting. Usually there's always some competition with a larger party, so it's nice to work together. Therefore, what has been one of your favorite group cooperative experiences, whether in board games, video games, or otherwise? Best co-op experiences.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to default to like just having a bunch of like stayovers with my friends playing like Gauntlet Dark Legacy. We would just play that until like 2 a.m. It was like it was this perfect convergence of it was like the first time I had ever stayed up that late, like, to like 3 a.m, and we were all just kind of like so like just tired and had just eaten bags of Cheetos and and
all
we were
breathing heavily.
but like that game is just so like mindless that you can just start talking and making different little in-jokes as you're just kind of talking about something else, and then it's like, yeah, go get the treasure, like I have the key, so I need to open the door, like move out of the way. But it was just us hanging out, like playing Gauntlet Dark Legacy for like a whole weekend basically, and that game is so long, and I wouldn't necessarily say it holds up, but it's like we needed something to do that weekend, and we planned our entire weekend around it, and like that was like the best time I've ever had with friends with a game, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sweet. This is really tough because, like, okay, I've had plenty of great experiences, playing games with friends, but co-op, yes. But I think of board games. Like, I go to tabletop, and, like, I think of, like, last year really getting into playing Betrayal, and, like, those games of Betrayal where you take it seriously. Because do you know the hook with Betrayal, Kyle?
No.
It's a cool game where you're all exploring this mansion and going room by room, laying out new tiles. You're exploring the mansion, getting items. Your stats are going up and down. All these wacky, spooky things are happening to you and stuff. And then it's basically random. Then at some point, the turn happens. And at the turn, one person amongst you becomes the betrayer. And then it becomes like everybody trying to take down this one person. And there's like a storyline of like, okay, this person is a werewolf now, and they have these rules, and you have these rules. And so like it's just very intense co-op, both out of the gate, and then like once the flip happens, okay, we really need to rally together.
So is the idea that everyone knows who the betrayer is?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, who's the betrayer?
No.
Okay.
Well, it is, but it is until it happens, right? Like even the betrayer doesn't know that they're
that they're
betrayer.
going to be the betrayer. Yeah,
Okay,
because
but-
it's basically random. It's like, oh, if you and this, then it's this person with this lowest stat, they're the betrayer, or whoever it factors out that time. But I'd love to stream it at some point because I've had such a good time with that game.
And that's one that I actually haven't played, but
what?
But yeah, and I still don't have it yet at this point. But it has been on my list of games to get at some point.
Oh, I can't wait to play that with you now.
But you should say the full name of it is
Betrayal on a House on the Hill. Yeah. And it's remember it stood out because it was the favorite game of one of the co-directors for Outer Worlds. And on the cover story trip, he was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, I'll have to check it out at some point. I don't know, but yeah, I love it. Co-op.
Yeah, I think mine would be the original Left 4 Dead and playing that with my brother and one of our friends, because that was just such a different experience for co-op where it actually kind of you weaved your own story into it, but you would get to those choke points where it would be like the finale and you had to actually figure out how you're going to defend this place. And then you always had that run. And eventually, like someone would end up falling down and you would have that perfect video game moment of like, and also zombie movie moment of like, well, do I go back and try and save my friend or do I ditch them and just try and get out myself?
Right,
yes.
right.
And that was still such a powerful moment when I think back to it, those memories. That ends up being my favorite, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good answer, yeah.
Tim Loro says, my favorite thing is reading the comments on Patreon here before the podcast. And you can like your favorites. I never thought about that, but because all the people post their comments on the Patreon page, you can go through and like read ahead of time, which you couldn't do back in the Game Informer show when we sent the email in. And like, I never thought about the idea of like looking for the likes to help choose what gets read.
But Tim likes it, right? Like he likes getting the sort of heads up almost.
Tim likes it.
All right.
He likes
Tim.
it. Patrick Henderson says, hey, did the new Star Wars KOTOR news rumor get any of you guys excited? Did you see this?
No.
There's a rumor, take it with a grain of salt, but there's a rumor that EA is looking to kind of reboot Knights of the Old Republic, to kind of remake / reboot. I'm trying to think of, I guess, Final Fantasy VII-ify Knights of the Old Republic.
The original.
Yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, maybe somewhere in the middle or something.
Yeah, not quite a remake, a little more reboot, but it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, there's also the rumor that whatever direction Star Wars cinema goes in the future, it will be looking backward.
Right. Well, the leading rumor right now is that it's the High Republic, which is like 400 years before the Skywalker
and which
stuff.
KOTOR is significantly further
like
than
thousands.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe could tie together somehow. I don't know.
I'm not like it's not something I've been following super closely, but as someone who recently watched all the Star Wars movies, I if they announced that, I would play it. But
Have you ever played KOTOR?
No. So.
I haven't either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I've tried, but I was very late to it. Like I tried to play the Xbox version when I was like well into the Xbox 360 world, so it was a little tough to go back to. So I would love sort of an updated opportunity to revisit, like a Link's Awakening style, kind of like feels like closer to a modern game.
Hey, if we ever play it for the deepest dive, you can play it on iOS and completely have a terrible experience.
Own it.
Oh God!
Play it on that iPad.
Hans Kleinenberg says, the first time you used an abbreviation or nickname for someone, how conscious were you that it was the first time? So, for example, Ben, the first time you called Jeffem and not Jeff, were you very aware that you were using it for the first time? I always am, and for some reason, I wait a lot longer than other people because I often don't feel like I've earned the nickname yet. This is a phenomenon. Yes, that must have happened. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I absolutely felt weird referring to you as Jeffem when I first started Game
You should.
Because like I was like, I don't know him well enough. This is clearly like a nickname, but like
It sounds like a term of endearment, which is the problem.
Yeah, but like this, like
I do not think of it that way.
We want to distinguish you from Jeff Cork. There's two Jeffs in the office, and I felt like I wasn't allowed to say Jeffem yet. Like I needed to work with you longer before.
Yeah,
I
you
calling
weren't, Kyle.
Well, I made my way up to it.
It was weird because I was thrown into like having multiple coworkers who have the same name as others, so I feel like I had to, just by like necessity of like, well, there's two Bens, one of them is Reeves and one of them is Hansen, right? Same thing with Jeff and Jeff, but like, yeah, it did feel a little bit weird of like, because I always associate people referring to other people by their last names as like a school thing, because it happened to me a lot, because a lot of people just ignore my first name and just call me Vasquez in college, especially, which is weird.
Because no one knows how to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly. So they just called me Vasquez for a while, and it just
Big
felt
V.
yeah. Yeah, that's right. But like,
Anybody ever call you V Squeeze?
no.
Good.
and now they never will.
Yeah, 'cause, something I'm not short on at all is nicknames. But like, so I always felt it's a weird distancing move, but it at the office it felt like a necessity because then, especially since I was in the same bullpen as both of you, to say Ben, have two people look, that would be awkward.
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know how that boiled up, but there's so many Bens in high school that I think Hansen just popped up, and then it's I don't think I told anybody at Game Informer to call me Hansen.
There's a difference between nickname and last name.
I guess so.
Right?
But even that, there's a weird thing. I was everybody just agrees this is the best way to go. We'll just get used to Hansen.
No one ever called you Ben H?
I guess so. I used to sign all my hot paperwork Ben H,
I always thought when I first started Game Informer that Andy McNamara and Andrew Reiner would be referred to internally as the Andys. It's we gotta go check with the Andys. And then I got there, I was like, no, whatever. That's stupid.
It's confusing to me every time anybody would call Reiner Andy.
Yeah,
I didn't
it's
understand
very
it.
strange. Yeah.
I don't care for it. Adam Cohen says, hey, Ben in the cohorts, how often do you buy games on multiple platforms? For instance, I now own Broforce, End of the Gungeon, Jedi Knight 2, and Ape Out on both PC and Switch. I think PC and Switch is a real sweet spot for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have it on PC, but it's End of the Gungeon example is I just want that on my Switch. I'm going to have to get that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Switch would be the place that I've probably bought the most things a second time. There's a lot of dumb games I've bought multiple times. They're like Resident Evil 6. I've bought three times.
Dumb.
I don't know why I did it the second time or the third time.
What a mistake.
I played them all three times. I don't know.
Ugh. But why?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry, everybody.
I have Overwatch on every platform, and I don't know why I did that.
Every platform?
Well, I don't have it on Switch, but I have it on
So
PS4,
you're a liar.
Xbox. Okay, yeah. Kyle. I had it on every platform before it released on Switch, okay?
All right.
How did that happen?
Because I think there were just different people who wanted to play it on different platforms.
Wow.
I bought it on PC, and that's where I've played it most of the time. But there'd be people who were hey, we want to, in the 2016 heyday, everyone wanted hey, let's get an Overwatch group together. I don't have the game, so when it was on sale, I just bought it on that. And then there was another group that was hey, we want to play on Xbox. I was damn it, I'm gonna have to buy it. But the thing was I would only ever play those other versions one or two times. But and I was okay, well, I guess this will be a regular thing, and it never happened. We always went back to PC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy.
GTA 5 got me because of the cross-generation stuff, and Skyrim as well.
Well, there it is.
My GTA 5, I still haven't played it on PS4. I bought it on PS4 because
so you haven't
it's
finished
so much
it
different.
either.
Yeah, and then
sure.
And then when I got a decent PC, I bought a bunch of stuff on PC the second time around. I bought Devil May Cry the second time on PC, and that ran way better. And Destiny was another one that I ended up buying twice. I bought that Shadowkeep expansion on both PS4 and PC, even though I now play mostly on PC. But all my raiding gets done on PS4 because that's where my clan is.
There it is.
So.
Home is where the clan is.
That's right.
Thomas Hoster says, recently with Escape from Tarkov blowing up on Twitch, it's been a fun game over the years. Very different and very brutal. And thankfully to Twitch, a lot of new players are pouring in. It's been in early access with a dedicated fan base for 4 years or so. I saw people wondering when it would come to console. I sadly had to inform them it probably never would, just because there's so many complex key bindings and stuff that I don't think it'd really work on a controller. Have you guys been following Escape from Tarkov?
A little bit.
I have no idea what that is.
I looked it up for the first time the other day.
Yep,
kind of
same
went down
here.
a little bit of a rabbit hole of what is this? Why are people talking about this?
Yeah, so just blowing up on Twitch was a hardcore shooter.
Just hyper realistic, military shooter. Realistic physics.
I want to play it. I want to play it before next week's episode of the
It's
show.
one of those intimidating games. This would be like jumping into Counter-Strike Cold or something.
You think so?
Yeah, I bet.
It's also weird because I assumed it'd be a thing where it's it must have been a freebie on the Epic Store, or it's blew up on Steam, but you can't get it on either of those. It's their own,
that's right.
It's only available on their own website, which is such a weird thing. It is such a weird thing for that game to be as successful as it is, considering all of their tech is proprietary or whatever.
Yeah.
For getting the game.
That's very confusing. Jim Chatterton says, hey, CLCs, with the start of Call of Duty League and the Overwatch League going into their third season, I've been thinking about esports with city-based teams. I love how these two leagues are doing that. It got me following both when I would not consider them otherwise. I come from a sports background and root for the New York teams. Does having a city-based team matter to you?
When we went to that Call of Duty thing, I definitely was rooting for the Minnesota Rocker, but I guess as someone who never really followed sports, and also didn't have back when I used to live in Nebraska, we didn't have an NFL team. We didn't have as far as I know, I don't think we have an NBA team. So it's regional sports didn't really click with me much.
Yeah.
So I don't have like, and even in Minnesota, I'm a bit of a transplant, so it's not like I'm suddenly, into the Vikings or whatever. But, it like when you're watching a new thing, it helps to like, okay, well, I'm going to default to rooting for these guys because like this is, however tenuous, this is my, attachment to them, right?
Yeah.
It's a helpful starting line.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think you glossed past it. But yeah, we didn't really talk about it too much. But yeah, we went to the Call of Duty League big launch event weekend here in Minneapolis. That was in Minneapolis kind of in honor of the new team called the Minnesota Rocker. ROKKR. We made a YouTube video to kind of show off what that event was like, got to tour the headquarters and stuff.
It made me laugh.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a very
Put that in the description. Made Kyle laugh. Stamp of
I do
approval.
jump into like those videos that I'm not involved in, and I'll be like, "This is funny."
Yeah, I've noticed that. You're like, Jeff, that tabletop review had a couple jokes in it.
Just making sure you guys know that you're making jokes.
Okay,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What was your take on that event overall, Suriel?
I mean, I've been to a couple things like it. It feels similar to even. I've gone to like the World Finals. So I don't know. I don't remember what it's called. Like I don't want to say it's a Call of Duty League, but it's like one of their finals from previous years I've been to.
Sure.
So it's like it felt very much in that vein. But it was weird because I'd gone to the Armory before for like a Tyler the Creator concert. So it was weird seeing this very different thing in the same venue.
Yeah.
But it was fun to like be around people who were also watching like an esport, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just
Did you get into the matches, or was it kind of like, this is really tough to follow, but just the enthusiasm of the crowd is infectious?
It started off that way. I think once I got used to the to what was happening, it took a little bit. You kind of have to learn how to watch this stuff.
Yeah.
I think by the end of my time there, I kind of figured out like what I should be looking at on the screen at any given moment, and how to read like a lot of the interface that they have on screen. But I enjoyed myself. It's like the crowd was definitely like a bigger factor. I don't know that I would have watched it if I were just watching at home. I think that the live environment definitely helped.
Yeah, that was fun.
How did our team do?
They did well. They won the first match.
I think they won the first match. I want to say they ended up losing, but I don't remember super clearly. I left before the match was over, but that's just. I mean, they were kind of held up because events end up going super late, especially when it comes to esports stuff. So
Yeah.
ended up having to leave.
Yeah, how about you stop asking so many questions?
Oh, okay.
Anyways, Gio Benogi says, so I was just wondering, do you guys prefer parties of 3 or 4 in your RPGs? Personally, I prefer groups of 4. I feel like I can get to know so many more characters, and it helps with the amount of variety in the group. With 3 in a party, I always feel like my group is lacking something. I prefer 3, but I think that's just from starting with Final Fantasy 7. And then I was really second guessing myself. I'm like, I remember 9 has 4, but it's weird that it goes like 3 is a mainstay for that era of Final Fantasy. And it's like they go 4 for 9, and then they go back to 3 for
Isn't
10.
Like 6? You're 4 and 6, right?
Is it? I think is it 4 and 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to say for most of that Super Nintendo era.
Yeah, because
there
it's
were
Yeah.
like that iconic like 4
Right.
characters on
Yeah,
the side
yeah,
of the screen. Yeah.
And then it's weird. Then thinking about that dev team. Then when they move on to Chrono Trigger, then they go down to 3.
Yeah.
Pick a lane.
I want to admit, I don't like kicking people out of the party. I don't like. It makes me sad that they're.
You just want everybody to jump in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Blue
that'd be
Dragon
nice.
style, or every fight takes like 1,000 years because you got to pick 8 attacks or something.
Yeah, boy. Jason Kelly says, I recently jumped into Final Fantasy 14 because I wanted to see what all the hubbub was about. I'm pleasantly surprised by how overwhelmingly nice and helpful the community has been. People are always willing to help clear low-level or early-game content when the queue times get rough, and every time I've had a question about what a certain term means or for tips on how to play my class better, I've always gotten super helpful and polite responses. My question is, not counting the beautiful MinnMax community, what is the best experience you've had with random strangers in an online video game?
I think for me, it's usually been like proving people wrong. So like,
Just
I think
dunking on fools?
Well, no, because it's like people on my own team. Because like, I think I've told the story before of like I play Takis, who's a character that a lot of people hate. So every time you pick him, people will say like, well, we've already lost. This sucks. Or really, like you'll start the match at a disadvantage because your team hates you. But there was like this team of like guys like I'm gonna play defensively. We have a Spectre on our team who is like a defensive character as well that I can help. But they were like, yeah, you're not gonna do. We're just gonna count you out of the game. Like we're gonna pretend we only have four people in this party. And very slowly over the course of 85 minutes, I was like the person who was holding and defending the base by myself while everyone else got strong enough, and then we turned the game around. And it's like, all right, you know what? You proved this wrong. Like, and it was like the first time people admitted that they were wrong on the internet.
Wow, you were there for that.
Yeah, it was a historic moment. So they were like, look, we doubted you, but all right, you turned this around. And then in Gears of War, there was one match where, in the first Gears of War, where I was taking a bathroom break because I thought the game was over, but we actually had one more round, and I came back and my entire team was dead, and everyone was like, "What do you do? You're not even moving." And I ended up winning that round for us, like solo, like single-handedly. And it was, you could hear them like, "He's not gonna." Oh my! Like they started getting super excited for like. Cool. And when I killed the last guy, everyone like they all lost their minds in the team chat, and it was like, "Yeah, I did that. I took that bathroom break and then came back and won."
So the best thing about playing with other people is you're cool.
Yeah,
that's right.
Being a total bragger.
Just having those experiences where it's like, the one of a kind moments that can only happen in multiplayer games.
Yeah, absolutely.
The odds are against you. When you're on the top. Yeah.
To answer the actual question, though,
not brag about your prowess.
I would say like every Dark Souls game. Like whenever, obviously people can come in and murder you, which is terrible,
or lead you astray.
But anytime that you can ask for someone to come in to help with a boss, like that is such a relief, and they're always super nice about it, and they wave to you after they totally kick the boss's ass for you. And that is always such a nice help in those games.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. I hadn't thought about like I took someone in with me to beat the final boss of Dark Souls 2, and like the person was like, "Congratulations on beating Dark Souls 2," and it was very sweet.
That's nice. Brady E says, "Hey everyone, hope you're all having a fantastic week. Hey Jeff, how are you specifically?"
Good.
Great.
Oh, trick question.
Anyway, here's my question. What's wrong with Jeffem? No. What's the best type of barrier in video games and why? Invisible walls? Sheer cliff faces? Piled up junk? Bottomless pits? Never-ending oceans? A random message saying you'll die in 10 seconds if you don't turn around? What's your preferred way of being told you're at the edge of the game world?
I like a good invisible wall mixed with when you approach it, like a no sign basically pops up.
Oh, like the fade in?
So when it's like, hey, you're here, and here's like the stop sign that says don't go any further.
Right.
That's really immersive.
And then
love
you like
that.
run in place on the streets running up against it.
Yeah, it's great. Love video games.
I wrote an article for Game Informer a while ago that was like, it was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, kind of silly, fun, something like Jeff would write, but not as good, I wrote it is what I'm getting at, about barriers in games like this. It was like, and it was like, you always got the pile of furniture and the stairwell and the invisible barrier, and like I was putting together images for it, and like I legitimately couldn't come up with anything for invisible barrier. Like, I don't know, is there a good screenshot of that? I was like, oh, I guess I'll just leave that one blank. And then like after I posted, everyone in the comments was like, oh, brilliant. The invisible barrier doesn't have an image because it's invisible. And I was like, oh, yes.
Available for free.
That is what I was going for. But the answer is piles of furniture in the hallway.
Yeah.
But even in an open world game, just a huge pile of furniture around the edge of the world?
It just like whenever there's a catastrophe, everyone's like hurriedly like moving out of their apartment, but then they just like give up partway through. I don't know what the context is.
I like the swimming out too far and then you like get eaten by sharks or some other danger.
Yes, you're
because
right.
that kind of makes you push your luck or makes you worry every time of like, am I too far out?
Right.
What's going to come eat me?
Do you like that thrill of just like seeing water though and being like, can I keep swimming? Or is it going to cut me off at some point? You don't feel like that's a waste of time when you swim out there and be like, okay, there's an invisible wall, but they put it by the water at Truman Show style, assuming you won't go out there.
It's always a waste of time, but someone should do the Truman Show thing where if you swim out far enough, you just hit into a wall.
Right.
It makes like a clunking noise.
Yes.
That would blow my mind.
And then, what's that actor's name?
Then you drown.
He's
Come on. Ed Harris.
Ed
Yes,
Harris.
then Ed Harris starts talking to you. They just play the entire
Please turn
recording.
around.
There's
Don't
nothing out
leave
there,
now.
Truman. By the way, Truman Show, great movie, but when he uses the magazine cutouts to make like a perfect representation of this woman he remembered, it's a bit much. Like you look at that, I know it's a movie, so they have to make it look close, but I dare you to try and cut out magazines for the next 10 years to look like your wife, somebody whose face you know very well. You could not get anywhere close.
Well, leave it to the community to cut out a picture of you and turn it in.
Yeah, please.
Send it to him.
Cut me, community. Cut me. Sonic TT1 says, what's your favorite software for writing? Do you know of any colleagues that use strange, interesting writing setups? How do you guys rate those things you do?
I mean, usually just Word, which is a boring answer, but I do.
What's wrong with Google Docs? Why do you use Word?
Well, I actually haven't used Google Docs more lately as I jump between careers, but it's like very simple, but just like Mac Notepad, and then like opening it and Command Shift T to just remove any like formatting of any kind. That's what I use to like.
That's when you copy and paste other people's articles?
That's right. Yeah. No, but I just like
It
having.
automatically deletes their name on it, their byline.
But I like having a document for like just writing notes and things, and just like not like the finalized version, but like I'm not gonna like, because Word can sometimes be complicated, or it's like it'll start like, oh, you're making a list, let me throw some bullets in there for you. Like I just want to get words down, and so Notepad with like just plain text is helpful for me. So that's kind of what I do usually to get started. You know? So
Smart.
So use Google Docs, and I think for notes I usually use Google Keep, just because it's on my phone. It immediately transfers over to your desktop version, so it's like you can just take notes wherever.
Google
Wait,
Keep.
really?
I should use that.
Yeah, for like game
We've
club
been
and
using
stuff.
Trello
Yeah,
like
I've-
idiots.
So you can
is that?
type, like I was typing notes on my phone, and then I was able to like kind of expound on them when I got to my computer, and then I used my phone to look at the notes for the Chrono Trigger podcast we recorded today.
Huh, there we go. Michael Moran, getting to the heart of the matter here. This guy gets gaming. What is your favorite Smash Brothers taunt?
Well, Luigi's does damage, right? It does 1% damage.
Is that right?
It's not useful, but
Wait,
yeah,
like his boner
yeah.
one?
What?
No, where he like,
He does that
sheepishly.
one where he's like,
Oh no, where he sheepishly like kicks, like he puts his head down and all shucks.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I had
does
no
damage.
idea. I mean, Show Me Your Moves is such a classic.
Yeah.
Like that is.
I don't know everybody's honestly. Like with the new thing. I always like Mario's growing, but that's gone now, right?
I know Jeff Cork is losing his mind. Yeah. I like, just going back a little bit too, I like the Fox. Come on! Come on! That one always makes me happy. The Wii Fit stretch is always a really
Yeah.
cocky move when somebody's
like
flying.
Banjo's
out.
bow that he does his yuck twice, you know.
Yeah.
That's
Very
good.
cute. Sam Holden says, how has the influx of Fire Emblem characters joining Smash Brothers, how has it affected Surreal's fanfiction?
Well, I haven't updated in a long time, but I think I would just murder them all immediately. You know?
Okay.
I think Ike would be the one who survived the Fire Emblem massacre.
Not
Maybe
Marth,
cause
huh?
it, you know. Who knows?
Oh, here's what you do.
He gets a crit on all of them.
No, you make it so that like King DDD hires Samus the bounty hunter to like take out these Fire Emblem characters one at a time.
And she has a gun, so
Disintegration's allowed.
Encouraged. Paul Poff says, hey, Ben Max and the Min crew. Sure. With Sony releasing this new PlayStation 4 add-on attachment, do you think this means the PlayStation 5 controllers will have those bottom buttons by default? Will Sony wow us by saying your PS4 controllers are compatible with the PlayStation 5?
but only
Yeah.
with the back button attachment.
Yeah.
I think it's such a strange attachment that like I think there's some sort of future proofing going on there. of
Really?
some
So
kind.
you
I
would
think so.
gamble that it will have the back paddles on the PS5?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that
You
seems
will
like,
gamble that.
Not with money.
Yeah, right?
Well, okay,
With
well,
paddles.
your life then.
Oh, my life. Okay.
Exclusively.
What about like blood? Like not money, but just like,
A pint.
yeah, a pint of your blood.
For whatever reason, when you started that sentence, I thought it was like, what about like, hey, let's get back on track. But it's like, no, what if we diverge further?
Adam H says, I hope everyone's having a great day, especially Jeffem.
Are you just adding this to every
I
letter
did
now?
that time. My question is, how many lives has Mario lost? Throughout the history of every Mario game ever played, the number must be mind-boggling. Has any character died more than Mario?
The Contra guys.
Oh,
No
But
way.
not even, because there's only one game. Yeah.
Well, Rogue Core.
No, those don't
There's,
count.
there's like 6 Metal Slug games, and they die a lot.
But compared, Mario has to be number one
Well, because he's the most
No,
played, right?
ooh,
Yeah.
Super Meat Boy.
over Mario.
a
though?
single Meat Boy game? No, it's gotta be.
Yeah, you
Mario.
look at
But
total
it's
sales for the
millions
entire
and
Mario
millions.
platforming series versus Super Meat Boy, no comparison. I agree you die more in Super Meat Boy, obviously, but I'm insulted by your suggestion. I mean, there's nothing else, right?
In terms of total deaths, probably not, because it's like the most popular game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like some long running series where you die frequently. Because that's the other thing. It's
Pac-Man.
like, yeah, but you die more often in Mario than you do Pac-Man, probably, right?
Yeah.
Tetris.
Okay,
They all
Tetris,
die.
losing those lives. Adam H says, side question, Ben, in public, do you prefer strangers to address you as Ben or Hansen or Mr. Hansen? Jeffem, actually, is what I prefer to go by. Adam says, I ran into Ben Reeves a while back at the Guthrie, which is a theater in Minneapolis, and I found myself hesitating to introduce myself, not knowing if you preferred Reeves or Ben. You made a mistake. You should have
Yeah,
introduced
just
yourself.
yell, "Hey, butthead."
Yeah.
and he'll turn around.
He'd
Hey,
be,
cornbread.
that's right. You'd be happy to respond to anything.
Yeah. No, feel free to.
I feel like
say
if,
hello to
on
us.
first reference, you can just call him Ben Reeves. Like if you're
Yeah.
said like, "Hey, Ben Reeves."
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Benjamin Reeves.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time I was at a brewery with Ben Reeves, and somebody.
Dr. Benjamin Reeves.
That's right. Bobby S. Reeves himself. and somebody walked by, and they just walk by our table and they go, "Hey, I like your guys' work." And they just like kept walking and left the brewery. And I was like, I wish they would have come up sooner so we could like talk to them a little bit and figure out why they like it.
Feedback.
Josh Carmel says, killer question. What exactly is comic mischief? It's always something we've seen forever on game ratings, but what exactly is it? Sly Cooper is obviously best defined as just comic mischief, but why is it a reason to rate something for a specific age? It's just being a little bit
great
naughty.
question.
What does that mean, though?
Cartoon violence, right? I mean, it's
Sure,
like,
yeah.
I mean, Sly Cooper does illegal things, but in the context of a cartoon, it's not
Is
so
that
bad.
what it is? It's illegal things, but when cartoons do illegal things?
Well, I thought it was like Looney Tunes violence, but then when they brought up the Sly Cooper example, I was like, there's not a lot of Looney Tunes violence in Sly Cooper.
Yeah.
It's somewhat grounded at least, but he is a thief breaking into
Does he?
things.
But does he perform like acts of violence on people? But it's just
hits them
happens
with
to
a
be
cane.
But is
contextualized
there a
as
rating
cartoon.
that's like cartoon violence?
Maybe that sounds familiar. Like cartoon violence.
Or is that just motion picture
I don't know.
association?
Is that an MPAA thing?
Yeah, at some point, comic mischief has to move up to violence. Like Fortnite, I could see it going either way because, like, well, they're cartoony. That's why a lot of
you're
parents let their
getting
kids play. But it's like,
headshots,
yeah,
yeah.
it is rated by the ACRB. It just says violent. It's rated T for teen, which
Yeah.
a lot of people are blowing that one. Yeah, we don't know. I'm going to go with illegal things, but done by a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like smuggling,
Making
human
away with
trafficking.
murder.
Dropping safes on people. That's
Yeah.
illegal. You're not allowed to do that.
Well, I think actually in
Comic
that's
human
mischief.
trafficking.
Chris Bartlett says, I recently played through The Order 1886 for the first time,
Oh.
and I've never seen a better example of a game that had so much potential but managed to miss the mark by a mile. No, Chris, you weren't paying attention. They have alternate identities. They're also the Knights of the Round, and then they also have other names.
Guys, I was going to play the Order 1886 this year, and you spoiled it.
It's not a spoiler. That's
I'm
a
not-
basic premise.
I'm
That's
also not
very
gonna play that
confusing. Damn it. Chris Bartlett says, what are some other good examples of games that managed to miss the mark by a mile but had so much potential?
Perfect Dark Zero.
Really?
You think that game has
Just
potential?
for potential for it being in the Perfect Dark
It had some
franchise? Or is it,
interesting,
like rare?
it had some interesting like multiplayer ideas that I
Yeah.
thought would become standards in other shooters.
Like
moving
not
forward.
having fun?
Like not having fun, or like the levels changing sides depending on how many people were playing, and like the one that I always think of is like you dictate. Like I always want the bad guys that I'm shooting to be colored red, and so like
Yeah,
everyone has like actually like an ultimately a unique view on the battlefield. So like it's never like Halo where you're like, wait, I'm blue team now. I've been playing red
Yeah.
team for the last hour. So I would say that was kind of just like a small touch. I mean, I don't think it's the best answer to this question because it's not like these weren't things that I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change shooters, and it didn't. It was just these little tiny things. I was like, oh, that's a smart idea. I bet
Yeah.
I'll see that again, and I haven't really seen it much.
Not so much. Yeah. I think of Paper Mario Color Splash. Like I love those original Paper Mario games so much, and that game's like, that Color Splash looks so good. It has so much charm to it, and then the battle mechanics are like literally a waste of time. There's no advantage to battling. It just makes you do that. And every NPC is a toad. It's just like,
And you don't
Oh.
like the toads?
no, not 6,000 of them. One toad in the game.
I have a distinct memory of you just Seinfeld yelling, I don't ever want to talk to a toad again. Which is just like always sticks in my head whenever I see toad.
That game, man, it's so frustrating.
The 3DS Kid Icarus game, I think, is probably the one where it's like,
yeah,
there
yeah.
could be a pretty good game under there if the controls weren't complete garbage. And they had to issue like a stand or something so you can play that game like two-handed or whatever Sakura wanted
Could
you
they
to
port
do.
that to Switch with just dual analog controls?
I mean, they can change a lot of that game. And
That'd
honestly,
be
I think
fun
it'd be
to
fine.
retool that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys see this rumor, by the way? I meant to talk about it last week, but let's see. There was somebody, some smart person on the internet with some hot sources, and they were the person and the only person that said, hey, Keanu Reeves is coming to Cyberpunk. And everyone's like, okay, buddy. And then when that was revealed at E3, everyone's like, wait a minute. That person has some sources from Nintendo that, first of all, a new Metroid game's coming this year.
I did hear about this.
That's 2D, and it's going to be related to Fusion, like a sequel to Fusion or a reboot of Fusion.
Yeah, which I'm into that rumor because Samus Returns ends with a like a hint of the future. Like
Is
it's
that right?
it's a little bit of a tease. Yeah, and so I bet Mercury Steam is working on another 2D one, which I think would be great.
That'd be
I like
super
those guys.
exciting,
Yeah.
for sure. But then the other one was that Nintendo's going to be announcing a new Paper Mario this year, which is like, okay, sure.
See that? Yeah.
I'm excited. But,
Color Splash port.
oh my
Color
God,
Splash,
no.
2 more Toads. Now you
All
play as a Toad.
Toads.
Your party members are a Toad. The menus are a series of Toads.
No, but with,
Frogs in it.
with the addendum that they're going back to the roots.
Oh, like a remake. Maybe.
They're actually making it like a meaningful RPG. Yeah, they're actually making them good again. I would argue great
This
again.
one's good, just on the back of the box.
But that is, if that's true, and like it seems like decent source at this point, that could end up being one of my favorite games of the year.
Yeah, could also mean a Switch port of Thousand Year Door, which would be pretty cool.
I would honestly take that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be fantastic. If it's a remake, of either of those first 2 games, or they bundle it together somehow, but that'd be decent size. But God, here's hoping, huh?
Yeah, I'd love both of those things.
God damn.
The Metroid one would be surprising to me, just considering like what I have Metroid on the mind right now because I'm playing Prime, but like it's like I don't know what to expect of the future of that series. Like we know Prime 4 is coming, but we don't know when. There's that rumored like the Prime bundle coming to Switch, which is like supposedly done, is the rumor, and then like maybe another 2D one is like. It's good, but it's just all up in the air right now. There's like nothing concrete.
Yeah,
It's weird.
we have so little idea of what Nintendo is doing this year. I think the only we have it's Animal Crossing and that Pokemon DX
the DLC.
remake is like the only thing they have slated for the year. Everything else-
Well, Bayonetta 3. Have they said 2020?
I don't think they've said 2020 for Bayonetta.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we have like Bayonetta, we have Metroid Prime 4, we have like sequel to Breath of the Wild that we don't know.
Yeah, they're putting a lot in Kentucky Route Zero TV edition. That's their.
Well, I think a couple weeks ago on this podcast, didn't they confirm that Mario Odyssey 2 is happening this year?
No, it was Breath of the Wild 2 actually. Even.
Yeah, there was
I'll have to
someone
go
who was
back and
really
check the
adamant
tape.
about it.
I don't know.
It's some kook like talking about how making insane predictions about Mario.
Fool.
Seth Walker says, "Hey, Ben and crew, with all the classic franchises of our childhoods, Star Wars, Star Trek, Twilight Zone, Transformers, etc., becoming more and more divisive with every new installment or iteration." Were we that angry about the new Twilight Zone? I was a little bit disappointed, but I wasn't angry. Anyways, what do you think it would take for someone new to come along and capture the hearts of a generation the way the above-mentioned franchises did in their golden ages?
I mean,
So-
those kind of exist. They're just for a new generation.
Yeah,
like the
it
same
turns out
way.
we're just not young.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that my kid loves that like she will grow up with and like really.
What's your kid's Star Wars?
That's a good question. Probably. I don't know.
Frozen?
Yeah, I mean, maybe something like that. Like, she's not a big Frozen fan. But, I mean, there's something that hasn't come along, or, like, I don't realize that she loves as much as she does, that when she's older will be, like, a big deal to her. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't know you loved that as much as you do. So,
Biker Mice from Mars?
I also
loves
feel like
Biker Mice from Mars.
I also feel like there are just way more things now that like nothing can dominate your attention the way Star Wars captured a generation of people because it's like what else was there really in terms of those kinds of franchises. So now it's like your daughter just like maybe into Frozen, but she's also like watching a lot of YouTube or like she's splitting her time so much more thoroughly that it just feels like no one thing is going to completely take over her life, right?
You know what actually is one is I think Steven Universe. Moving forward,
Oh, interesting.
I think that is going to be looked back on like fondly and will be ahead of its time. And like as we get older, like that will be like the next generation will look at that show and be like, that show was amazing.
When are they going to start the Steven Cinematic Universe?
There's been a movie.
Okay. Chris Logan says both the video game industry and the Hollywood industry have been very keen on remakes in recent years, but the reaction from consumers seems to be radically different. With video games, most of us are more than willing to pay good money to experience old favorites in new ways. Meanwhile, Hollywood is criticized for rehashing popular material. People complain that Hollywood must be out of ideas, but they are just cashing in on nostalgia rather than using the same resources to create new stories. But couldn't these same complaints apply to video game remakes? Why do you think remakes are received so differently between the industries? It's an excellent question.
I think it has a lot to do with like video games are software, and so like they even like old retro games are like retro in the same way that Windows 95 is retro, is that there are a lot of usability issues where it's like, okay, there are things I would like to see fixed about, this old version of Windows that they apply to new versions. But there's also like this tenure of like, well, it's also like an idiosyncratic like creative experience, right? Like the original KOTOR, for example, like the reason you want a remake of that isn't necessarily so like to tell a new story. It's because you want to play that game again, but going back to it is difficult because it'll have like usability issues.
It's not like, hey, the new Little Women film is more convenient than the other Little Women films.
Like, faster loading in that new Little Women.
So I think that's a lot of it. Is like I just want to play that game again, but it's hard to go back. It's harder to go back to video games than it is to go back to movies.
You're right. Is the convenience oomph?
Yeah.
Right.
I love this question because I was thinking about it. That Pokemon movie is coming out. That is a CG remake of the 2D original Pokemon movie. And I was trying to think, it's like, has anything ever happened like that? Like in terms of like going 2D to 3D, like full remake of a film? Because that feels almost like a video game remake as opposed to like a film remake.
Well, yeah, every Disney movie from the past 3 years.
Yeah, I guess like Lion King. But
that's like almost the opposite. Well,
I mean, it's like,
but Lion King is, I think, the perfect
mostly
example.
To live action,
right? But Lion King is just the animated.
Yeah,
that's just it's so funny that we still call that animated. That's a lot. That is, or we don't call it animated.
Right.
That is absolutely an animated film.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking about it as like, would I like to see Toy Story 1 like redone in the latest Toy Story sort of tech?
Yeah.
Like they don't change the dialogue. They even use the same dialogue, same cinematography. Like, would that be cool? Like, would it be fun where they could actually focus the camera and have like better shadows and stuff like? Because that was the thing, they couldn't put things out of focus in the original Toy Story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like it would take years probably. But like I was wondering, just as a consumer, like, would I be excited about that? Would I want to watch that? Like Toy Story, the original Toy Story, in a new engine, I guess you could say. I don't even know what you would call it. Like, would you want to watch that? I don't know.
I wouldn't want Pixar to do it. I wouldn't want them to waste their resources on that.
Sure.
Look, let's get some other studio to take care of that. Wherever John Lasseter went to Sky or
DreamWorks, I think. No, you're right. I think Sky.
Yeah, have them do it.
Sure.
Yeah, their weird outsource
I think
project.
the other aspect coming from the film, side of it, as opposed to what in addition to what Cyril was saying, was that it is the performances that are being kind of overwritten, and and acting performances by and large aren't going to get better, and especially when it's stuff that you saw when you were younger, you're just as emotionally invested in the actors who were playing those characters and the performances that they gave, and that's not something that really gets rewritten too much with video games. And I think that may be something like when we're getting to now, like the Final Fantasy VII remake, like time period of remakes, where if you start kind of reimagining people's voice, like what the voice actors, if you're starting to replace those, people may be a little more touchy about it, or like when they talk about, well, the character shouldn't be like that, that I could see that start to creep into video games more. Yeah. In terms of that.
Right, but there's not stepping on too much.
You're not erasing, Michael Caine. Like Michael Caine is that character. How can you replace him?
Right.
Tanning Tatum, or Channing Tatum.
Tanning Tatum. Welcome to my new Netflix series, Tanning Tatum.
That's a good screen name if you want to grab that. Tanning Tatum.
It's already copyrighted.
I feel like I've heard that mistake made before, but I don't know where.
It's a stupid name.
It's a stupid name. Did you see on SNL Adam Driver's monologue, where it's just him like trying to relax, and he just had that stupid joke that I think about more often than I should, where he said,
"It's only been a week. How can you think about this?"
I think about it every day for the last week. He said, "Little women, a lot of women."
There's speaking of Adam Driver and SNL, he did one of the commercials, like leading it. I'm going to host this week, and the idea was like he walked into the studio and it was like a mess from a party. And like the janitor there was like, "All right, you got to help me." And Adam was like, "Oh no, I'm the host this week." But eventually he just gives in and like starts cleaning up, and he takes a Christmas tree and walks out to the street and just drops it on the ground, and he just goes, "Oh, that's where that goes."
But he says it like aggressively.
I know, but it just made me laugh so hard. And I was like, just watching that, just him plopping a tree on a New York street and just being like, in that Adam Driver voice of like, "That's where that goes." Like, it was so good. It was better than the monologue.
His building, I guess, character now for Adam Driver of just
imposing.
imposing, overly self-serious, stiff, aggressive guy could pop at any moment. Yeah. Cool.
So, anyway.
Hey, I think it's time for something I like to call Get a Load of This.
Gallon.
We need a theme song for it.
Have you ever listened to the podcast?
No.
Everyone else just heard it, you idiot.
What's a podcast?
Do you just play the theme song again?
There's this little dedicated sting.
There's a dedicated...
Look, these episodes are like 4 hours long. How am I... I guess I can fast forward to get a load of this.
Serial Vasquez.
Okay.
What are we loading up on?
So I recently, for whatever reason, was on the r/Battlefront wiki or Reddit.
I don't know why that made me laugh so much.
I'm gonna see if I
And
can
you were
figure-
saying, why is no one responding to my messages?
No, but
I feel
it's-
like I'm talking to a vacuum
So
out
this
here.
this blew up on Reddit, and so like it was weird because the idea is I think in the comments people were saying he's supposed to be saying "come here." So this is a clip of someone playing as General Grievous in Star Wars Battlefront 2, and he has this fun little line.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you heard that.
It already happened.
Are you saying F you?
Yeah, it sounds like he's saying "f you," but everyone's like, "Oh, if you listen to that sound clip, going in thinking, oh, he says come here," people are saying like that's what his line is.
It's the dress situation, the color of the dress?
Yeah, exactly. But
Okay.
I cannot hear the "come here." I always hear the "f you."
I gotta listen to it again. Maybe I'll listen to
Grievous.
the episode.
Yeah, I can send you the link.
You guys no good.
You don't have to listen to this show. Don't worry about it.
How weird. Jeffrey Papa.
Hey, get a load of this. Did you know that there is a music intro to this segment? No, this was a tweet by someone named Matt Shirley, but it's spelled Sure and then Lee. He put together an unscientific survey, he said, but I think it was still like 3,000 people responded to it. And he mapped out every state's least favorite state.
Oh, that's so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so good.
And so here are some of the treasures that he got. And so first, obviously, I checked to make sure that it's accurate. I checked Minnesota,
Yeah.
which obviously
Wisconsin.
hates Wisconsin. Yes.
Yeah.
And that was right. So as far as I'm concerned, it's scientific from now on.
Just to add to that, my wife showed me this earlier, and she was like, "What do you think South Carolina is?" And I was like, "Well, it's Ohio." And she was like, "Yep,
Because
you
of
got it."
sports?
No, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But living there was this thing. You could buy like bumper stickers that say "Go back to Ohio."
It has to be a sports thing.
No, I think it's because a lot of tourists from Ohio would come to Charleston, South Carolina, and people would get frustrated by the tourists. I don't think it's a sports thing.
It's
Some
a weird
Ohio immigration?
Yeah, it's very weird.
And everybody knows Nebraska hates sports
Iowa?
teams. Oh, really? Do you think
Maybe.
All right. Well, there's no way of knowing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so? What are the good novelty ones? Do
yeah.
Alaska and Hawaii hate each other?
So
the freak states.
First of all, North Dakota hates South Dakota, and South Dakota hates North Dakota, right?
Just become Dakota.
Yeah. Wisconsin actually hates Illinois, so I thought that was interesting. I
Not
thought they would hate us
reciprocated.
back. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that means that we're just better than them and they accept it, or if they can't be bothered to hate us back.
Maybe our hate is unwarranted.
I think if the Vikings actually beat the Packers every once in a while, they
think
might
that's the
hate
problem.
us.
The other thing, everything west of North Dakota and South Dakota, almost completely, they all hate California.
Yes. Yes.
And California hates Texas. But Texas hates Oklahoma for some reason.
What? I would have said like New York. Or
Yeah,
something.
Oh, what a beautiful morning.
And then Oklahoma and Nevada both hate Texas. So they're going back the other way.
Weird.
Alaska hates Texas, which is weird.
Well, because it's the second biggest.
We're the
state,
biggest
right?
state.
It's oil competition.
Maybe.
Oh.
That's good. Maybe. And Hawaii doesn't hate anyone. He says doesn't hate anyone because he didn't get any answers back from Hawaii specifically.
Different
But then
time
the
zone.
other,
Too busy surfing.
the
to
other one that
respond
I thought
online.
was funny is that Florida hates Florida, which is just perfect for Florida. Yeah, so look for that
amazing.
map.
Yeah.
It's a lot of funny stuff.
I wonder if that would work on like a video game franchise level. Like fans of Doom hate this franchise.
Oh,
if there'd be
weird.
any way to like unify what people dislike based on the franchises they do like.
Maybe genres might make it a little smaller.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, trying to zone it down. That's good. That's fun.
I think there's
Hillary.
one map that says they all hate MOBAs or something.
Probably, yes.
So this is a tweet. What is this from? This was from January 15th from Duncan Jones, who directed the World of Warcraft movie.
And Moon.
And Moon.
Yeah, like the World of Warcraft
Yeah.
movie, his claim to fame.
His Twitter handle is Man-Made Moon, which is probably better than Man-Made Warcraft. But I thought this was really funny. First of all, it was weird trivia, but also I'm surprised he was like tweeting this. So he tweets, Warcraft is still GOAT for game to film box office. And he says, I know this is petty, but I don't care. And then he shared a screenshot of the World of Warcraft film has made $439 million, and the Pokemon Detective Pikachu movie worldwide gross has made $431 million.
Wow.
So like World of Warcraft made more money than Detective Pikachu, which kind of blows my mind. And I was also just surprised to see him like tweeting that. Like, hey,
Those China
that
bucks.
movie that you guys think is dumb did better than that movie you kind of like.
Was the next tweet, and I should direct the next Pokemon movie?
That's right. Give me job.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
On the Warcraft front, I was debating talking about Warcraft 3.
Oh, get a load of that. I don't think I said it.
That's true. Warcraft 3 Reforged, which came out this week as well. But I was like, I don't
So
know.
just everyone, fireworks, like.
Well, people are upset because it's a huge downgrade from what they first revealed
Oh,
when they
really? Oh,
announced
okay.
the game. So it's just another wave of people being angry at Blizzard for that whole thing. But like even on that cover story trip, they're also mushy about like, I don't know exactly what our plans are going to be, how many cinematics we're going to redo and stuff. But even like the in-game cinematics and what they showed early on are different now. So the community's upset about Warcraft 3, but it's still an HD version of Warcraft 3 and the launcher now and all that stuff. But remember when Blizzard was not great last year? It's like, I don't know if we need to talk about that. Anyways, get a load of this, you guys. Miguel Lozada, this fella, he tweeted a bunch of pictures of a GameStop, and he said, okay, GameStop, I see you. Might be onto something finally. And he tweeted pictures of one of those test GameStops, which I believe are in Tulsa, just like Watchmen, where it's much cleaner, less stuff on the walls, focused on like, okay, here's basically just a bunch of TVs for people to play competitive games together, split screen, stuff like that, a table for playing tabletop games. GameStop retweeted it and said, be careful tweeting pics like this. Some people might start to think we know what we're doing. I was like, what a weird thing.
Call
and
them
then,
their shot.
But that got retweeted a ton. And I saw like people like Cory Barlog retweeted this GameStop tweet and be like, maybe we know what we're doing after all. And so then I clicked through, I'm like, what's this going to be actually like? And just like so many of the responses were just like horrific towards GameStop. But like the GameStop social media account is trying to like reply to them with just silly memes and being like all upbeat, you know? So it's just a lot of people just being like, okay, but how do you turn this into revenue? And the person who asked that had an office like profile pic, and so GameStop replies and said, "Big respect for Prison Mike." And number one, number two, you'll see. And so it's just like a ton of people were like,
Like underwear gnomes.
yeah. And someone's like, if that were so, you wouldn't be begging for the tech trades to try and keep you floating to the next gen systems that would help you stay in business. Get that Chapter 11 paperwork ready. And then GameStop responds, you think so? Okay, cool. It's just like this weird like tone to all of these people being mean. But you know, what's GameStop to do? And I do think it's like one of those things of like, oh, I do think those stores look cleaner and
trying
nicer,
some.
and I hope they spread out. It's just weird to be like this social media bravado about like pictures of one store.
Yeah,
No, guys, we figured it out. You can drop your kids off here now.
It almost looks like a Chuck E. Cheese approach or something. It's weird. Like they had like a picture that was like a party. But the thing that struck me, which was like it
Is it
made
an
me
empty table?
No, they had like a kid mocked up at the table. But like the thing that made me laugh was all the chairs surrounding the table were like gamer streamer chairs. Like that was like the novelty of like you can sit in a streamer chair while you celebrate your birthday, which is like I guess kids would be excited about that. I don't know. It's like is that fun? It's like come to my party, you can sit in a game streaming chair.
Right.
So at that point, have they just given up on the like buying experience of walking in and having to deal with a bunch of kids like I need my Fortnite installed on this PC while you're trying to like actually purchase something there and the person like I can't. I'm trying to help you with your order, but this kid is crying, so I need to go talk to him about Fortnite.
I think that's
or
a
whatever.
huge obstacle.
Yeah.
I would like to see how they resolve it.
I don't mind one way or the other.
What's that?
I don't really want to see it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine. Hey, that's it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the MinnMax Show. We appreciate it. If you're watching it, we appreciate you too. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can always subscribe to the audio version. That would help us in some ways. Leave a review on iTunes, all that fun stuff. But thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm glad you found it. Let's see. We have Min Snacks going up on Friday.
I don't know why you're asking me. Like I'm the one editing the video.
I still have to finish editing it, so I'm asking myself and then looking into your beautiful blue eyes.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the Deepest Dive for Chrono Trigger. Not too late to jump in. The next episode is going to be February 12th for that, so come join us. It's a good time. And that's it. Thanks so much, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.